Hello, hello, everyone. Doggin Days here, and as you can see on screen, today we will be continuing our First Impressions series, where we talk about a specific wave of Renegades Age of Annihilation Heroscape continuation, and going over just the cards on the screen, looking over their powers, their stats, and I'll just give my general impression of them before I've had any chance to play them. I don't have any of these figures currently, and it's all speculation, but just a general, broad assessment of where I think these figures will fall in the game. And so today we'll be focusing on Rising Tide. There's quite a few units in this wave, and these figures, or these units, this announcement has been out for quite a while, but I put this video off because I wanted to focus on completing the last tier list video that I did for Wave 2 of Classic Heroscape. I wanted that to be the next video that I uploaded before I did anything related to Rising Tide, and now that's out of the way, we can fully devote our time to this. So I won't spend much longer on an introduction. If you want to see the other videos in the series, you can get a sense of what this video is going to be, but we're going to dive right into all of the units released in Rising Tide and go over just their place in the game and what I think of them. Yeah, and so again, just my opinions. I haven't had a chance to play any of these units. I'm not ranking them or anything. I'm just reading their cards, looking at their sculpts, and just giving my general thoughts, my first impressions, as the video title suggests. So before we start, we'll start here with Ordo Borealis. There's actually a certain order that I've arranged all these cards on screen. You can see there. That's because Rising Tide, as I understand, it is being released in two waves. There is a release of figures in February, and then a release of figures in April. So the February figures, if you pre-order them, this is my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, but if you pre-order any of the figures, and Ordo Borealis is among the February releases, if you go, and you can still pre-order, but if you pre-order any of these February releases, you will not get the promo figure, which we'll also talk about. You will not get the promo figure for free. You have to pre-order April release figures to get the promo figure, which we will talk about. So we'll go ahead and start with the February figures because they're still pretty cool, and they're still well worth talking about. But I think these first 5 or 6, these are all February, and then after that is all of the April releases. So we'll go over February, then April, and then talk about some of the promo figures that are also I'm also going to include in this Rising Tide discussion, because they've been announced at roughly the same time. Okay. Oh, and as always, I have Auto Load Builder up here, so we'll talk about any synergies that I can think of that come to mind for, there's Knight Primus, but we'll start with these guys. But any synergies I can think of related to these units, and we can even check if we're unsure, we can just search up a unit in here, and I've set it to VC and Delta pricing, but we can toggle those on and off as we see fit over the course of our discussion. But I'll be talking about synergies with Classic Heroscape, D&D Heroscape, and VC. So anything that comes to mind. I'll probably miss a few things. I will most likely make a couple mistakes because I'm just talking off the cuff here. Anyway, did I say that intro? I was going to trim down the intro. Well, I've already failed at that, haven't I? Let's just jump in. Let's just jump in and talk about new bears. We've got new bears, the Ordo Borealis. So these guys, I know that there is some people are expressing some, I guess, I don't know if the word is frustration with some of the new mechanics of these units, or some of the new stats, or just some of the mechanical design philosophies of Age of Annihilation units. That's a separate conversation, but I think most of us can agree that the art and the sculpts of all Age of Annihilation units are on point. These are some beautiful miniatures. The pre-paints, obviously, these are, these are nicer pre-paints that they posted for, for their website. But certainly with the paint jobs done and the sculpts themselves, and just conceptually, thematically, just these Arctic polar bears firing enormous, preposterously oversized harpoons. He's got it over his shoulder. That's badass. So the art is on point for these guys. I'm focusing less on the story here. This story's. I will say this. Heroscape, I don't play Heroscape for the story. There are cool moments in the story, there's cool writing in the story, it's just not something I pay too much attention about. It's nice, as a kind of background lore to inform the game and kind of inform your understanding of the figures. I don't focus too much on it. I will say this, though. Having said that, I encourage everyone who hasn't read the bios for these figures to do so, because there is some, I have to say, I was surprised at some of the quality of the writing on some of these bios, and there's a couple units further down the line in this list that we will talk about that I was particularly impressed with from a narrative writing standpoint. So anyway, do encourage you guys to give a read on these, but essentially these are some comrades of the Frostclaws and that and the Ursine of Heroscape. So go ahead and blow up the card here and take a look at that. So Ordo Borealis, these are the ranged counterpart to the Frostclaw Paladins. They are 3 to a squad. They're a unique squad, and that's the thing. Age of Annihilation, for better or worse, they are focusing on all unique units. I don't think we've had any uncommon units, and I don't think we've had any common units. So just unique squads, and hey, that's I can understand why they're focusing on that. There may even be a business reason to do that, because if you release a set that is all common squads and then you release a set that's all unique figures, the common sets are going to sell much more than the unique because people are army building and stuff like that. I don't know though. I don't know. It's not my place to discuss that. I'm just here. I'm just some dude talking about the cards. But anyway, they're a unique squad. They are knights, which I want to talk about this, and I'm sure I'm not the only person who's noticed some connections with the fact that they're knights. They're also militaristic, and I think this is interesting because, and I wanted to double check this, as far as personalities, I believe militaristic so there's a couple of VC units that are militaristic, but militaristic was introduced by Shurak, who was a D&D figure. So I think it's kind of interesting that some personalities that I've in the past usually associated with either D&D figures or VC figures, they're now making their way into sort of canon Heroscape or canon story Heroscape. So I think that's kind of cool. That's a neat little nod to the D&D lineage that Age of Annihilation has, so that's kind of cool. Or rather, the connection to not lineage. You know what I mean. This is why you need to write out a script, Dog and Days, because you go on these tangents, and we haven't even talked about the card. Okay, but like the Frostclaws, they have 2 lives, and this is they're not the the bears are not the only ones so far in Heroscape to have 2 lives. We also have the Necrotech Wraith Riders, but the at first, when I first saw the Frostclaws and saw a 2-life squad figure, I was like, oh, that's kind of cool, but that's not going to be that's not going to make them. I wasn't like super impressed by it. Then I played against them in a couple of tournaments. Oh boy, does that extra life matter. Oh boy, especially with 4 defense. So it's with a class, with a standard squad figure from the past, you just needed 1 point of damage to knock him out. I just need 1 extra skull over their shields. That's all I need. And then they're gone. They're gone from the picture. But these guys, they can take 1 extra skull and they'll still be standing, which means they'll still be present to lock down any figures they're engaged with, and they'll still be present on their next turn if your opponent has your order marker on them so that they can attack. This 2-life, it's what they call game changing. It's unironically game changing. So I no longer dismiss this or overlook this. This is significant, this extra life in a squad figure. So they have 5 move. They're a bit faster than their Frostclaw brethren. Let's pull those up. Frostclaws. Okay, yeah. So just to have them up on screen. So the Frostclaws had base 3 move, but they also have run. So as needed, the Frostclaws can buff themselves to 6 move. These guys just have 5 move base, which I think is kind of interesting because they're hefting enormous firearms on their shoulder. You'd think maybe base 4 move, but 5 is, just visually, that's pretty impressive for these guys. They have base range 1, but we'll get into reload over here. And then attack 3, defense 4. So other than that, they match the Frostclaws in their stats. Again, it's only 3 figures instead of 4 figures to a squad. And they are 110 points. And the Frostclaws, what are they? They're 120 in Delta, but in, in Classic, they stay 120. Let's go ahead and get rid of this. And I'm going to switch. I like sorting my autoload builder first by general and then by alphabetical. So let's see, we get the Frostclaws. Yeah, so they're 120 both in Classic and Delta. They don't change. But yeah, so they match. They're a little cheaper than the Frostclaws at 110. We'll see if Delta does anything to that. Defense 4, 2 life. They're tanky for squad figures. They're pretty tough. This is where they get interesting, of course. Reload, if an Ordo Borealis does not move on its turn, it may add 6 to its range value for the rest of that turn. I can't be the only one who saw a comparison to the 4th Massachusetts line. This is a figure that gets a buff of some kind if it does not move. But there's an interesting difference. So where the 4th Mass, let's pull them up here. So the 4th Mass, if none of the fourth mass move on their turn. They can add 1 to their attack. So you have to keep the entire squad still to get their Wait Then Fire buff. But with these guys, if an Ordo Borealis, and this is kind of this is similar to the Frost Claws here, in that you can choose which ones you want to give a buff to. You know, you don't have to keep the entire squad still to get a buff. Or here, before moving a Frostclaw Paladin, you may add 3 to that figure's move value this turn. So you don't have to do this for if you're moving with the Frostclaws. If you want some of them to run, that's fine. If you want one of them to run, that's fine. If you want all of them to run, that's great. But you can choose. You can spread that buff out to as many figures as you want. It doesn't have to be the full squad like with the fourth mass. And the same thing appears to be going on here with Reload if an Ordo Borealis. So if you just wanted this guy right here to stay put and get his reload on his harpoon, you could do that, and the rest of these guys could charge forward. That's up to you. So I like that flexibility. That's really cool. And then, you know, adding 6 to the range, that gives them 7 range, 3 attack. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. Of course, they'd all have to stand back. If you want 3 attacks of 3 at 7 range, they'd all have to stay put. So there's a trade-off you have to consider there as you're deciding which one of these guys to put the buff onto. So it forces some interesting decisions for a player running them. Now I want to talk about some of the synergies. Again, certainly not the first person who's identified this, but these guys would work well with Sir Gilbert in that, let's pull up Gilbert here. Gilbert, okay. So Sir Gilbert has his Jandar's Dispatch, so you roll your 12 Jandar Valkyrie dice, move up to 4 squad figures, so no distinction between common or unique. It can be any squad figures you control who follow Jandar. Check, check. So for these guys. So if you roll a dispatch roll with Gilbert, however many Jandar symbols you have, you can move these guys that many spaces. So that can be helpful to get these guys into position. You know, if they're right next to height and you just they just need to climb that little ledge, you get 2 Jandar symbols, you can plop them up on height. And so that counts as movement outside of the Ordo Borealis' turn. That's great. So in other words, Gilbert helps get them into position without spending their move point, without them doing a move phase on their turn. So when you activate Ordo Borealis on their turn, when you flip an order marker on them, then they can stay put if you like their position, and then they can buff their range to 7. That's really cool. So that's one way to use them, and of course Gilbert bonds with the Frostclaws, so you could have Gilbert with a bunch of bears, keep it pretty thematic, and he could be moving up Frostclaws, he could be moving up Ordo Borealis with his dispatch. Lots of fun to be had there. So then the other synergy that came to mind as a knight, these guys, and I am sure I didn't discover this. You know, I'm sure there's other people who know about this, but Concan has Knight and Sentinel enhancement. All friendly Knights and Sentinels adjacent to Concan roll an additional attack die and an additional defense die. You seeing what's going on here? So if you put Concan and a bunch of Ordo Borealis on height, so Concan in the center and all the Ordo Borealis are surrounding him, they are 2 lives, each of them, all 3 of these guys are 2 lives with 5 defense each, 6 if they're on height, and they are attacking at 7 range, 4 attack, 5 if they're attacking down on height. So the reason I wanted to bring this up is when I first looked at the Ordo Borealis, before even considering any synergies, I thought, cool. When would you take these guys over Krav Maga agents? Krav Maga have stealth dodge, they have 1 more move, they always get 7 range no matter where they are on a map, and and they can move around, you know, without having to give up range, you know. So to me, they're 110. The Krav Maga are 100 in Classic, they're 120 in Delta. To me, I was kind of wondering, like, why would you take these guys over the Krav Maga? Well, to me, that's why. That there is the possibility of a buff like this. And of course, the possibility they could be moved by Gilbert. So there are plenty of compelling reasons to take these guys over the Krav Maga, thinking on that. And I would be really interested if, you know, when I get my hands on these guys, when the order comes in, I will want to try out the Concan Ordo Borealis pod. Because they'll be up on their perch, they'll be firing down, putting out a lot of pain, and then even if the enemy gets to them, they gotta cut through 3 figures that have 10 survivability if you times life times defense. So 5 defense with Concan, 2 life. Each of them has 10 survivability. These are squad figures. It's crazy. So, these guys, the more I've thought about them since I first read their card, the more impressed I am with them. They're bears, man. We love our bears. The Frostclaws have been great in tournaments so far. Some of the best of Age of Annihilation in competitive play. These guys will probably be pretty close, not far behind. We'll see how they shake out in the power rankings. But yeah, we love our bears. And so I think with that we can move on. One last thing. Large. This goes without saying for all the bear units, but large is important because it means that they're immune from certain auto-destroy powers. You love to see it. So these guys are they're just meat shields, just big boys, just like holding the line, and you love to see it. So, in Heroscape, we love our bears. Okay, and speaking of bears, let's talk about the new bear hero that's been released, Knight Primus Adelbern. Again, the art and the sculpts are on point. On that point, though, do read his bio, by the way. This is a cool bio. But on that point, here's his sculpt, and this might be perspective. I haven't held the figure, and I haven't, seen him from different angles. I've just seen Primus from here. But if you look at the art and the figure, he's a bit thicker here, if you know what I mean. He's a wide boy right here. Let's load that up now. But like you can see, he's got greater width going on right there. Why is it not loading? What the heck? Anyway, we can look at it here. But it just doesn't seem quite. Oh, here we go. We got it. Yeah, we got it right here. Okay. Do you see what I mean? Just from this perspective, he just seems a little thinner. I like him wide. I like a wide Primus right there. And I will talk a little bit about some of my thoughts on the new design of the cards, where there's actual hand-drawn art that's being used instead of an image of the figure, like in classic Heroscape. I got some thoughts on that. We'll talk in a little bit, but I like the art and the sculpt. No issues there. So let's open up his card. Let's blow it up a little bit. Okay, so he is a unique hero. He's a champion, which is important for the Frostclaws. That means he can bond with the Frostclaws as a Jandar champion, and he is wild. So this means, well, we'll talk about what that means, but he's large, so he can't be auto-destroyed by certain powers. Now let's look at his stats. So he's 150 points. That will make sense when we talk about this. And his stats, he's got 8 lives, which is amazing. He's got 6 moves, so he's very fast. He has the Frostclaws move with run, just base. You don't have to run with Knight Primus Adelbern. He just has 6 move, period, end of story. He's got 5 attack, which is very good. 3 defense, but he's got the 8 life. He's still a tank. He's still got a lot of survivability. 150 points seems reasonable. I might even wonder if that's low for what he offers, because of Crushing Blow here. So after moving and before attacking, you may inflict. Every time I read this, I always have to read it again just to make sure I'm getting it right. You may inflict 1 wound on either a small or medium squad figure, or a small or medium common hero adjacent to Knight Primus Adelbern. I think that's the common hero piece is interesting because, as far as I know, Age of Annihilation itself has not released any common heroes yet. So that it's that's obviously Age of Annihilation making itself synergistic with classic Heroscape, which we appreciate. I wonder, almost from the designer's standpoint, if they want to create kind of their own self-contained Age of Annihilation Heroscape. If you wanted to just play an event that's only Age of Annihilation units, there are certainly squad figures, small and medium squad figures released in Age of Annihilation, but there's no common hero. So not a bad thing, just an interesting point that they threw that in as kind of a nod to people who have invested in having classic heroes and have classic heroes in their collection. That's a cool synergy he has with classic Heroscape and potentially future Heroscape if Age of Annihilation releases any common heroes. But this strikes me as the modern version of Grimnack's Chomp. It's slightly nerfed in that you can't inflict any wounds on a unique hero, period. You just can't. Whereas with Grimnack, you could destroy that unique hero if he was smaller, medium, and you rolled a 17 or higher. But Knight Primus, he can't auto wound unique heroes. That's fine though. I mean, he automatically destroys. You don't roll for anything. You just destroy a small or medium figure adjacent to him, or a small or medium common hero adjacent to him. Just gone, deleted, goodbye, done. That is great, especially with 6 move, and yeah, the fact that he bonds with certain units. He'll be scary into a mob of common chaff and squad chaff. So this is really impressive, along with his 5 attack. Now, the 8 life it's great to see. We love to see it. I've noticed that, and I'm certain others have noticed this too, but I feel like in Age of Annihilation, they're kind of playing it safe. They're, for the most part, they're playing it pretty safe with the stats on the units they're releasing, which I think is maybe a reaction to they don't want to create another Q9, they don't want to create another unit that's just completely overpowered. And I appreciate that, if that is the case. What I liked about Classic Heroscape is it was more willing to take risks and go crazy. Like, Classic Heroscape would not have been afraid to just say, like, yeah, Deathwalker 9000, he's got 9 defense. Yeah, Charos, he's got 9 life. Yeah, Jotun, he's got 8 attack. And to me, those stats, that's how Heroscape tells its story in some way. Like, you don't need to so much know about the backstory of a character, but just knowing what the character can do on the board and the stats associated with that character. Sometimes a stat line in itself can be memorable, can be charismatic, and so that if you can remember a unit's stat line without much effort, I think that's a well-designed unit, and it connects with the stats connect with his personality. So anyway, I've noticed that about Age of Annihilation, that they tend not to go too much higher than 4 attack, not much higher than maybe 4 or 5 defense, and a lot of units, they don't have much higher than 5 range. That does appear to be changing with Rising Tide. There are some units that kind of break those ceilings, but that's just something I've noticed. But Knight Primus Adelbern would be one of those units. He has 8 life, so he's I don't know, it's not coming to mind if there are any Age of Annihilation units that also have 8 life, but it's nice to see that Age of Annihilation is not afraid to bump up a stat like that to 8. So with all that, with that whole piece out of the way, he's like a Grimneck. He's large, can't be auto-destroyed. But unlike Grimneck, he's got 5 base attack on his own, so he could probably do some damage on his normal attack phase in addition to Crushing Blow. He's very offensive. He's going to work well with the Frost Claws, and he, interestingly, as a large wild hero, he will work with the Death Chasers from official D&D Heroscape, the Death Chasers of Thesk. So Taskmaster Bond. Before taking a turn with the Death Chasers, you may first take a turn with any large wild hero you control. The Death Chasers already have a pretty good roster of Taskmasters, and this guy is just going to add another one into it. It's kind of like, they're orcs, so they're going to get their own quasi-Grimneck. It's great. It's great. I don't have a whole lot else to say about him, other than I think he's going to be a really impressive and competitively viable unit. That's my feeling on this guy. So well done. Excited to play him. We'll see how he shakes out. Okay, so there's that. And next we will come to... doesn't it just warm your heart to see this? For anyone who's grew up with Classic Heroscape, doesn't this just warm your heart? I know Sir Heroscape is overjoyed at this, was overjoyed even when Avalon Hill just released the concept art. Our boy Sonlen has returned. So that's I really like the decision that all 5 of the heroes, as part of that coalition that went into the swamps in Swarm of the Morrow, they're all getting rebranded for Age of Annihilation. They're all coming back in some form, transformed or upgraded in some way. It's really great to see. And Sonlen was just a really cool, memorable character. Regardless of what you think of his power level on the board, his presence on the board as someone who can heal, can auto wound, and can normal attack at 6 range with 4 attack. Sonlen, he's got a really cool... His classic Sonlen had a really cool toolbox of powers, so it just is great to see that the little dragon on his shoulder has blossomed into this mighty beast here, and now it's his steed. And this, to me, even apart from the lore that you could read here, which is cool, to me, this is the kind of storytelling that Heroscape can do very well, which is just visual storytelling the figure, the personality, the visual personality that a figure has, the board presence combined with their stats, but also too these instances where a canon hero or a canon character gets upgraded or gets re-released, so is still alive in the lore and has transformed in some way. That to me, regardless of any of the text here, which is cool, do read it, but that to me is one way that Heroscape does tell its story pretty well. It's just through the figures and just through the way it changes the figures, returning figures over time. You'll love to see it. So yeah, that's Sonlen. Our boy is back. Let's open up his card here. And yeah, so I'm sure Sir Heroscape is just having the time of his life with this release. So it's just wonderful to see. So like his classic counterpart, he is elf, unique hero. He is still an archmage. His personality now is confident, whereas I believe classic Sonlen is tricky. No? Come on, let's go here. Sonlen. Okay. He's tricky, yep. So he's grown in confidence now, which is interesting to see. He is also a large because he has his dragon, so he can't be auto-wounded by certain powers. That's good to see as well. This is an area where I was kind of perplexed, is in his stat line. So classic Sonlen, right now we have a classic. He goes down in Delta to 125, which is maybe a bit more reasonable, but classic points, excuse me, I'm gonna take a sip of water. Excuse me, my throat is dry with all this talking. But he's 160 in classic points, goes down to 120 in Delta. Right here, new Sonlen is only 10 points more expensive than classic Sonlen in classic points. And his stat line doesn't change that much. In fact, I think the only thing that does change is his move. So on his dragon only gives him one extra move. Of course, one extra move with flying, certainly, not to be ignored. But I just, he's on a dragon. Does the dragon not have more attack? Does the dragon not give him more survivability, one extra defense? It was a little perplexing to me. So it seems mainly the dragon has just helped him with mobility in terms of raw stats. But there are powers that this dragon also provides, just like in his classic form. So now we're looking at Healing Wing 13. So after moving normally with Sonlen, you may choose a figure with one or more wounds that is adjacent to Sonlen, or that he passed over during his movement this turn, and roll the 20-sided die. If you roll 13 or higher, remove a wound marker from that card. And I like this. This is very thematic. The idea that this dragon can heal people under its wing, kind of like it's taking an ally in its embrace and offering healing. I think that's really cool. Or it can provide like shade, in the heat, and it can heal an ally. Really thematic power, and I like how it sounds mechanically. It's also cool that it's a 13 or higher. Classic Sonlen's was 15 or higher for the dragon healing, and dragon healing for classic Sonlen, you had to do it before moving. And here, this is after moving normally with Sonlen. So you can move him and then attempt the heal, which is kind of nice because when you're playing with classic Sonlen, sometimes you might have a figure that had moved out, one of your figures that had moved out onto the board that was wounded, and Sonlen just couldn't reach him without moving on his next. If you had your next order marker on Sonlen, that figure you wanted to heal is just out of range, so you can't move with classic Sonlen to heal them. You could, but you'd have to heal him next turn. You couldn't do it the same in one turn. This is cool because you could position Sonlen into an area that would allow for healing. The trick, though, is this is not ranged healing. Sonlen's you could range within 4 clear side spaces, or classic Sonlen, 4 clear side spaces. That's cool. But this here you have to either be adjacent to or fly over a figure, and that's really cool too. Like this mystical dragon, wherever it flies, the land that it passed over, it like bathes in this healing aura. It's beautiful. It's beautiful, is what it is. It's beautiful. So you may choose a figure. So you can only do this once, but as you're moving Sonlen into place, if there's another he's got 6 moves with flying. So if you've got another figure that's kind of off on a different front, you could have Sonlen just quickly fly over him, and then even if you're sending Sonlen to do another job, maybe you want to attack another hero that's not preoccupied by that wounded hero on your team, you could fly Sonlen quickly over that wounded hero, see if you can attempt to heal, and then plop Sonlen to do the job you initially sent him out for. So lots of utility there. Great to see. Dragon Assault. This is an interesting twist on double assault. So when Sonlen attacks an adjacent figure or destructible object, he may attack one additional time. If Sonlen used his flying power this turn, roll one additional combat die on the first attack. So like double assault, you can only do this on adjacent figures, so Sonlen can't do it at 6 range. But what is cool is that there is a little enhancement for the dragon. So if you flew with the dragon, you can buff to 5 attack. Okay, fine. So I can sort of see. Yeah, there you go. That's kind of my complaint earlier about did the dragon really affect his base stats all that much? Well, maybe not his base stats, but the dragon offers a buff that can get him to 1 attack of 4, and then followed up by an attack of 5 if he was flying. Cool, really cool. So it's great to see Sonlen return. It's great to see the little dragon, the cute little dragon that used to be perched on his shoulder, has now matured into this beautiful beast. And they're you can imagine the relationship these two have. Just it's like a hunter and his dog. Just like a loyal companion that uses his senses and his powers to help his comrade here. So just. Great to see. Very happy that Sonlen has returned. All right, I think that's enough on Sonlen. We can go to this one here. Totally new. We go from a returning character to a brand new character, Halushia, Scion of the Wild. Said it before. I'll say it again. I'm iffy on. I would have been fine with the character just named Halushia, but this Halushia, title of the title, noun of the adjective or whatever, noun of the noun, I guess, but I'm not crazy about that naming convention. It's all right. It's all right. I can live with it, but that's not what we care about ultimately. We care about, is the sculpt cool and are the powers cool? Check. Sculpt is very cool. Check. I also like the color, the paint job, the kind of the very, very dark brown of these woodland colors and this cracking oak here, not oak, but what is it? These tusks or antlers that he has. I like it. So yeah, so far every sculpt in Age of Annihilation has been great, beautiful, and I do like this paint job here. But let's go ahead and check out his card. So he is Halushia. He is a Dryan. So I think there might be 1 or 2 other Dryans still out there. Well, let's check. That's why we have the autoload builder up. So Dryan. Oh yeah, Awashia. Awashia is one, and so is Rakchat. So all of these strange nature wizards are Dryans. So that's a cool connection. And all the Dryans have command familiar. So Awashia has command familiar, Rakchat has command familiar, and so does Halushia. So I actually I do not currently have the battle box. I was not able to get it at the time. I don't paint my figures. I'm trying to get into painting, but I do spring usually for the pre-painted or the premium painted edition, because that's what I got into Heroscape for. You can just pull out the figures and they're already pre-painted. Great. I will say I do think sooner or later I'm going to have to get into painting. One, I've got too many ideas for cool paints that I want to do for figures, but also two, it's just it's too expensive to buy the classic figures, and it's too expensive to buy VC. So 3D printing it's essential, and all of my 3D prints are just monochrome right now, which is fine for a fire elemental or a blue wormling. But when you want them, when you're running something a little fancier, you want to give your own spin to it. So I certainly will. I do believe I'm going to have to take up painting at some point. I just haven't pulled the trigger on that front. But anyway, talking about the reason I brought that up is I don't actually yet have the physical battle box. My friend does. My friend Alex does, and I have played the battle box with him, and I have seen the figures with him. But I personally do not have the battle box. I just was not able to get the pre-painted version at the time of its release. So I have yet to play with, I have yet to super familiarize myself with the command familiar options. When I played with Alex on his battle box, he played the pirates and I played Awashia and the familiars. So I've played one game where I was commanding one of the Dryan with the familiars, but I am kind of interested in this because there is let's see, Otar the pig, the boar from VC. So this is a small beast that counts as a familiar. You can take a turn with a small or medium beast you control. Actually, that's a good question. Are there any medium beasts? Let's see. Beast. large, huge, huge, large, huge, small, large. Yeah, nope. So far, Kita and Anshu, those are the two official small beasts from the battle box. So those are the intended familiars for these guys. But Otar also counts. And so I've really wanted... I don't have Otar, but, I'll probably 3D print him. But what I've wanted to do is set up, either with Awashia or Rakshot or now Halushia, I've wanted to try the three-pronged familiar command, where I've got three different familiars. I've got Anshu, I've got Kita, and I've got Otar. All of them, just these woodland creatures running out to protect their Dryan wizard commander. So it's a build I want to play around with. Is it going to be competitive? It's going to be fun, though. It's going to be fun. So that's one reason I'm sort of interested in Halushia as just another commander for this dream familiar build that I'm slowly putting together, or trying to put together. So he can after revealing an order marker on Halushia, before taking a turn, you may take a turn with a small and medium beast hero you control. So that's how you do it. Giving him 3 heroes that you could use this power on, you could extend the life of how long he's able to use that power. So I think that's kind of cool. He's a wizard, and he's ferocious, and he's large. So immune to certain auto wound attacks, or auto wound powers. It's great to see. And now we can look at his stats. So he's got 7 life. That's pretty survivable. 3 defense. I do, personally, I like seeing figures with high life and 3 defense. 3 defense is not impossible to get through. Most figures can get their way through it, even if they're pretty weak. Like little Mard Nagrub occasionally does get through 3 defense, puts a little wound on it. And but if you give him extra lives, it means that he's not going to die immediately from those little attacks, but it is possible to bring him down with lots of little attacks. So same thing with Knight Primus Adelbern. I like seeing, where possible, I prefer figures, if you want to communicate a figure that is really tanky and that has a lot of health or survivability, give him more lives instead of more defense. That's preferred, because I think the opposite is something like a Q9, where he's got 7 defense and 4 life, and you just can never kill him. You just can never kill him in a game, because it's just so hard to get even 1 wound through 7 defense, and you have to do it 4 more times to kill him. So yeah, I like that. I like that here. 7 move is great. That he's pretty fast, as he should be, as a centaur figure here. He's got 5 attack, so he's similar in stat line to Knight Primus Adelbern. But 5 attack is just great to see, so he will hit very hard when he does hit if he's targeting a single figure. This is an interesting power here, Rouse the Glade. So figures adjacent to a tree or bush roll 1 fewer combat die when defending against Halushia's attacks. So normally, I think you look at this as a bonus. It's nice to have, but it's not, it's not going to apply to every map you play on. Normally, these are kind of for me when I see a terrain-based ability, because it's just like not every map you play on is going to have that specific terrain. But it is worth noting that the Age of Annihilation has released its own jungle set, and that was one of the first releases of terrain that they offered in terms of special terrain, and it's the same rules as the Takala jungle. And so my thinking is that a lot of people who maybe missed out on Takala, and they're like, oh, I wish I had jungle. Then Age of Annihilation came out and said, here you go, here's jungle. And so they're like, oh great, now I can build all those jungle maps I never had a chance to build, Or like, I know a lot of people would buy like aquarium plants to build jungle, and I'm all for that. I'm all for those workshop, makeshift solutions to Heroscape. I'm all about that. I love it. But maybe some people who didn't do that, they now have an option to get actual official Heroscape jungle through Age of Annihilation. So my point with all that is, if you go to like a blind event where you don't know what maps are going to show up, a local tournament or whatever, I would imagine and suspect there is an increase in general jungle on the maps you see. So Halushia might be a bit better, going for, Rouse the Glade, I should say, will be more applicable to more maps coming up. So that's kind of neat. But it only applies on maps where there is jungle. So okay, with all that out of the way, now we talk about his special attack, Ride by Special Attack. Very thematic. Instead of moving and attacking normally with Halushia, you may move him up to 4 spaces. So his move goes down from 7 to 4. That's a pretty big dip. So you have to really think about if you want to give that up. But Halushia can attack up to 3 times with Ride by Special. That's why you give it up. At any point before, during, or after this move, as long as he is on a space where he can end his movement, Halushia cannot attack the same figure more than once in a single turn with Ride by Special Attack. When using Ride by, Halushia is never attacked when leaving an engagement. That's So it's pretty cool that you can essentially give him disengage if you nerf his move to 4 and commit yourself to the special attack of 3. So if maybe you are trying to get him to attack a more powerful and more important hero, you want him to drop his normal attack of 5 on the more important hero, but that more important hero is guarded by kind of a bit of a screen of squad figures, so you can just snake him through that squad figure screen and have him whack each of those squad figures and try to take them down. And even if he doesn't, hey, whatever, he's still moving through that screen on his way to his target. So it's cool. Another way I could see this being used is if it's like a wall of figures that you just can't get through, you could have him run parallel to that wall, just whack, whack, whack. He attacks 3 different figures in that wall, and just let's see. You may I want to check at any point during after. I believe this is 3 separate attacks. You don't roll once for all figures. It's just 3 separate. It can attack up to 3 times. So you roll the dice 3 times. Yeah. So there's different ways to play with this. My initial thought on Halushia is he is going to be someone. He's going to be good for attacking heroes, but he's got options to take out squad chaff on his way to his main targets. So that's kind of cool. Other than that, I don't see too many. I don't know if there are too many synergies with him in Classic or VC Heroscape. Let me just check. The Wizard is one thing I'm kind of curious about. Wizard. Let's see. Everyone is a wizard. So the Tomb Skeletons, they get a buff against wizards with a range of 4, or rather, figures with a range of 4 or more that try to attack them. The skeletons get to add +1 to their defense unless that figure is a wizard. And so Halushia is a wizard, but it doesn't count for him because he only has 1 range here. So that even that doesn't apply to Halushia. But I don't know. I feel like synergistically he's kind of isolated from the web of synergies of Heroscape. I don't have much more to say about him. He's one I'm just going to want to get my hands on and play a bit more. But the ride by is cool. And again, I want to get my hands on Otar so I can have my little familiar army, and I'd want to try that with Iwashia, Rakchot, and Halushia, certainly. So this is the main reason that I personally am interested in him. But yeah, that's all I have to say on Halushia. Okay, so we'll click off him, and now we come to the new I believe this is Unicron from the Transformers movie. I thought it was a little odd that Age of Annihilation was going to invest the resources to produce a plastic miniature larger than a planet that was able to devour that planet. An odd choice, but hey, if you have a way to store that miniature, then great. Teasing aside, obnoxious jokes aside, this is a new Eisenach hero. This is Hellforge Mandukor, teased to us in the Avalon Hill promo art, concept art, as well as we have seen his sculpt before with the ill-fated Avalon Hill campaign of Heroscape. This is a new hero for the Eisenach faction, Hellforge Mandukor. See, okay, that's a name I like. That's a name I can get down with. Halushia, Scion of the Wild, Hellforge Mandukor, I can get down with that. One thing I want to point out about the art, it appears that there is a humanoid construct here that has been welded into the actual creature. It's the machine itself here. There's a really cool backstory too. You can see there's a lot of text here. Read it. This is a cool backstory behind this guy. But yeah, what this reminds me of, as I made another one of my obnoxious jokes in my video on Revna's rebuke for Iron Lich Viscera, but the whole Eisenach faction reminds me a lot of the Strogg, if anyone is a Quake aficionado. So these, just these cybernetic, these cybernetic horrors, overly industrialized monstrosities that have sacrificed all of their biological components for mechanics like this. So it feels like Strogg, and as someone who played a lot of Quake 2 and Quake 4 growing up, it makes me happy to see. So I shouldn't say grown up. In my early 20s, I played a lot of Quake 2 and Quake 4. So anyway, that's growing up, sure, whatever. But anyway, enough on that. I just really like the Eisenach conceptually. I like them visually. This is a beautiful sculpt, and I'm super excited to get my hands on them because in, what is it, Revna's Rebuke, my two favorite sculpts were Kilkarax and Iron Lich Viscera. I think Kilkarax just narrowly takes it. She's freaking awesome. But Iron Lich Viscera is really cool too, and Hellforge is wild, and very thematic with the sculpt, as we will see here. So look at that sculpt. I'm really happy as someone who enjoys turquoise. I like turquoise and teal, and I like that color. I like that hue. So I really enjoy and really appreciate that Age of Annihilation is leaning into that, especially on the Eisenachs. I like seeing it. Thank you, Renegade. Thank you, Age of Annihilation. We like to see it. Okay, let's get his card up here. I don't know why it's so slow. But anyway, we can sort of read it here once this thing stops spinning. So we'll go ahead and use this. He is a Devourer. So you know what this means, folks? This means he is going to be buffed by the Diminutive. So you get a bunch of Diminutifs around him. Let's see. Oh, can't be reached. What the heck? Let's try that again. I wonder if it's straining my system doing the streaming. There we go. Now it's cooperating. Okay. You can put a bunch of Diminutifs around your Hellforge. Buff him. So he's got 4 base attack. If you got if you got 3 Diminutifs around him, yeah, you're gonna buff him to 7 attack. Yep. So I can see a pretty competitive build forming right there. Yeah. My Diminutifs and Hellforge, put them all together. Problem is though, is Blast Furnace here. So that's the problem here. That's probably the issue with the Diminutive on the Hellforge build. But let's go. We'll come to the powers next. So he is he's an Eisenach. He's a unique hero. He is a Devourer, very important. He's menacing and he's huge. So as a huge figure, he's not going to he can't be auto wounded by certain powers. And actually, interesting to note, he is. You might not think it with how far his arms extend out beyond his figure, but he is in fact a single space figure. Which I thought it's odd. It's really odd. What's the balance like on this figure? You know, how does it keep itself from tipping over? Those arms look pretty heavy. But anyway, what is cool about this is that there are very few huge size single space figures in the game. Molten Claw from official D&D Heroscape. Molten Claw, as you can see here, he is a single space huge size dragon. So he gets the immunities of a huge size figure with the movement and positioning advantages of a single space figure. That's great to see. And then also, I believe Exentia, I say Exentia, that's probably wrong, but whatever. Exentia is a, you can see 1 hex right there. So is a huge size figure with 1 hex. Also a flying figure. It's useful to position her onto a single hex. You can take up, you know, if there's a single hex of height, just put her on that, boom. No one else is contesting you for that height. You own the spot. And it's easier to end your movement. There's more places on the board where you can end your movement. So while Hellforge can't fly, although that'd be pretty cool, while he can't fly, he can position himself more easily with the single space. So that's neat to see. So this is an interesting 4/4/4. He's got 6 life, 4 move, 4 attack, 4 defense, obviously 1 range, and 130 points. Yeah. So his base move is he's slow, but that makes sense. Look at him. You know, he's a mechanical monstrosity. Attack of 4, defense of 4. Yeah, that's okay. That's okay by me. I guess the survivability matches Iron Lich Viscera. 6 life, 4 defense. Let's check that. Let's check Viscera. Iron Lich Viscera. Let's check him here. Okay, and yes, indeed, 6 life, 4 defense. So maybe that's a common Eisenach thing. That just they're big machines. They're big heroes will have that much survivability. Okay, that's fine by me. 130 points. Let's talk about his powers here. This is where he really becomes the character that he looks like he should be in the on his sculpt. So Blast Furnace. That's going to be the problem with your Diminutive buffing buffing the Hellforge. During Hellforge Mandukor's turn, before moving with it, Interesting. Before moving with it, and each time it moves onto a space during this movement, you must roll the 20-sided die, once for each figure adjacent to Hellforge. If you roll a 15 or higher, that figure receives 1 wound. Figures with lava resistant, they don't get affected. Hellforge cannot roll Blast Furnace against the same figure more than once per turn. For people who like VC, Avernus comes to mind. He's that giant wall of fire that is part of the Constructs build. So Wave of Flame. Before moving normally with Avernus, and each time Avernus moves onto a space during normal movement, you must roll the 20-sided die, once for each figure adjacent to Avernus. If you roll a 14 or higher, that figure receives 1 wound. Figures with lava-resistant power. Yeah, so it's similar to that where, he's burning everything he's touching, essentially. With Avernus, it's 14 or higher. With Hellforge, it's 15 or higher. That's fine. It's just neat to have that option to distribute some extra wounds as he's moving. Of course, Avernus is much faster. He's got 6 move, so he's going to affect him. And Avernus is double space, so he really is affecting a lot of the board when he moves. Hellforge, not so much, but again, it's just neat to have that. And now we have Feed the Forge 15. If a figure or destructible object adjacent to Hellforge is destroyed, you may roll the 20-sided die. Add 8 to the roll if the figure is an Eisenek, Solborg, or destructible object. If you roll a 15 or higher, you may remove a wound marker from this card. I like this for many reasons. One, it's very thematic, but two, I think I talked about in the Revna's Rebuke video. It was cool that Heroscape was exploring a faction of figures that was, or a species, I should say, that is mechanical, that is clearly, they're robot-like, but they're not Solborgs. Because the reason that I find that interesting is because Solborgs in Heroscape, they were just sort of like Heroscape's robots. Like, if it was a robot in classic Heroscape, it was a Solborg. Done. And so there were a lot of powers that were assigned to classic units that affected robots, or that the robots were immune to. And so Heroscape never said, like, oh yeah, robots cannot be affected by a Morrow Plague from the Marden Hounds. It's just Solborgs can't, because Solborgs were the only robots in Heroscape. But now you have Eisenek. So Eisenek are robots, but they can be affected by Morrow Plague and other similar Solborg affecting powers. Or rather, they are immune to Morrow Plague. And there are also, like with Techno Hatred, the Quasach. The Quasach will get their extra attack into Solborgs, but a Quasach, even though you would think the Quasach would also hate the Eisenek, but per the card, they don't get a buff into the Eisenek. So I guess the Quasach really have a bone to pick with the Solborgs, but they look at the Eisenek and they're like, nah, you're fine. And they just move on. So, yeah. But anyway, I appreciate that. The Eisenek, they're filling out kind of a thematic niche, that they're robotic, they're biomechanical, but they're not Solborgs, But this power here is really cool because it's kind of a nod to that. You can increase the likelihood of feeding the Forge even with Solborgs. So both Eiseneks and Solborgs are considered just metal matter for this enormous furnace, and you could more easily heal wounds on the furnace. So I think that's really cool, but it doesn't have to be 15 or higher. You could consume anything. So anything that's in the path of this, if a figure or destructible object adjacent to is destroyed. So it could even be a huge size figure. It's not even small or medium. You would think small or medium with the size of that opening right there. But no, you can just feed anything. Can you imagine if a dragon died next to it? Like, what that... just the process of, like, just forcing the dragon inside that... Oh, God, that's gruesome. Oh, geez. Okay, yeah. So, anyway, but can be done. 15 or higher, you can heal a wound. That's similar to, like, if Marku attacks destroys the Morrow Hive, Marku just... I imagine his mouth just like opens up like a what is it, an anglerfish or some like deep sea creature whose mouth just like his jaw just like dislocated and he noms it and eats it and heals. Yeah, all right. Kind of something similar going on here. But this is really cool, and I believe this power was revealed in the Avalon Hill prototype cards. So we've known that he was going to have a power like this. It's just cool to see it in its official form. And then here is Eisenach Advance. So at the start of each round, after all order markers have been placed, if all your order markers are placed on Eisenach army cards, you may move Hellforge up to 4 spaces. Hellforge must end this movement on an empty space. So this, as far as I understand, you cannot trigger Blast Furnace with Eisenach Advance during Hellforge Mandukor's turn. So this is movement that's done outside of the turn, so this doesn't trigger the Blast Furnace. Correct me if I'm wrong in that, but that's my understanding there. But that is cool. You can kind of move him up 4 spaces, and then normally move him on his turn another 4 spaces. That's 8 move? That's crazy. But 8 move... it's at the start of each round. Okay, so that 8 move once per round. That's a bit more manageable. But it's cool to see that that could help him at the start of a round, get him into position to Blast Furnace a bunch of people. Lots of cool powers, very thematic. This is on the more thematic end. In my the Wave 2 tier list, I talked about I think one of the reasons Krug is such a beloved unit is because you know his character in the lore, and the powers on his card and his stat line, they just perfectly fit his character. Something similar is going on here with Hellforge. These powers and the sculpt, super charismatic. I really like it. So one reason I'm also excited to see him is to try him with Iron Lich Viscerat. I'm just going to use, here? Even though he's an Age of Annihilation unit, I'm just going to use this here. So Ironclad Puppeteer. So after revealing an order marker on Viscerat and taking a turn with him, you may take a turn with another unique Eisenach hero or squad you control. So for a while, the only figure we could use this on was the Necrotech Wraith Riders, which is the squad that comes in the set of Iron Lich Viscera. That's a set I do have. So I played a lot of games with Iron Lich and his Wraith Riders. Pretty impressive. They can do some really cool things. But it will be neat to see how including Hellforge into that mix is going to shake things up. So I'm excited to see it. I like the Eisenach visually as a faction, and I want to talk. I'm going to add a little point about Revna here as a faction, but there's a lot more Revna coming, so we'll get to her in a bit. But I'm excited mainly to get my hands on him to try him out with the other Eisenachs, as I'm sure many people are. So great design, Age of Annihilation. Really excited to play him. Okay, and now we can officially get into the figures that are going to be released in the April wave of figures, the second wave of Rising Tide. And so these are the figures, as I understand, this, starting with this guy and then all these other characters up to the promos, these next, I think, 6 units, if you pre-order the sets that include these figures, you will get for free the promo figure of this wave, and we'll get to him later on. So that's my understanding. Please correct me if I'm wrong. But we are starting off Wave 2 of Rising Tide with, we're making history here. Why are we making history? Because this is, along with the squad we'll cover here, the Volarak faction. Volarak. If you're a Bionicle fan, it always sounded to me like a Viscerak species. Or it's something like, it sounds like a Bionicle name. If anyone here grew up with Bionicle or is into that lore, Volarak sounds like either a Dark Hunter or a Viscerak species. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. The Volarak faction has arrived, and starting off with Wing Commander Tuck Harrigan. These figures were all revealed with Avalon Hill. This is a really interesting an interesting thematic genre niche that these characters are filling out. It's kind of like steampunk Star Fox, just like woodland creatures that have cool tech, and but instead of science fiction or like Star Wars with Star Fox, these guys are steampunk. And so he's got like what looks like a flintlock pistol. These guys here, as we'll come to them, they've got like mechanical wings they can fly with, and some cool like rifles and cool goggles. It's great. Love to see it. So Tuck Harrigan has a cool backstory too. Cool figure. He's kind of like a celebrity on his home planet or his home world. And there's a mixture. It's unclear what separates fact from legend with this guy, but that's just his presence in their society. He is a great legend, and indeed here he's a champion. He's a legendary war hero, fighter, and defender of their world. This is, I said earlier, I wanted to talk about the new decision to include art instead of the figure design, the actual figure, an image of the actual figure on the cards. When Age of Annihilation under Renegade was first being released and they decided to do the art instead of the figure, I was a little iffy on it. Maybe there's just nostalgia, maybe I'm just old-fashioned, but I kind of preferred seeing, kind of background art. Like if it was Utgard, you'd see like volcanoes and like, or like if it was, Ular, you'd see like a dense forest, a shadowy forest, and then the figure itself photoshopped onto that. I initially preferred that. But I will say here that with the Volorak faction and with Harrigan and these Vorid Glide Striker guys, these guys are the ones that have finally sold me on using art instead of the figure for these new cards. And the reason for that is I think this is some really cool visual storytelling. Like with with Hellforge. Okay, yeah, you can see him. He comes from He comes from, he's in a shadowy cave, and I guess this is the Revna faction. This is the Revna faction art. That's fine. And maybe this is the Volorak faction art. Maybe this will not apply to, other, I'm losing my train of thought. I've been talking for a while. My main point here is that when I first saw this, I imagined this art in the background. This is not, rather, instead of being the place where Volorak, is it a she? I think it's a she. Where she, correct me if I'm wrong, but where Volorak, instead of thinking of this background city as Volorak's base, I look at this is the planet that Harrigan came from and these Vorid characters come from, which it matches with some of the. To me, this is a. Cohesive with some of the lore that has been written about them here. I don't know. Visually, I like the idea that these steampunk critters, they live in this like Victorian society, and they've got cool tech, and I don't know. I find it really compelling visually. It's a cool idea. So anyway, this I will say, like, now after seeing the art on these cards, I'm like, all right, yeah, fine, I'm down. This is freaking awesome. Yeah, I'm down. So yeah, I just wanted to add that little note. It's not anything to do with the card itself, but I do now. I'm pretty much in camp art. Of course, I like having the photoshopped figures on it too. Basically, I'm good with either. That's my point. So okay, enough on that. Let us talk about the one of two debut units of the Volorak faction. So he is a Vorid. So I guess that's the name of these anthropomorphic little woodland creatures, these upright standing woodland creatures with their tech. They are the Vorids. He's a champion, and he's precise, and he's small. So small is cool. It allows him to hide better. Put him behind a rock piece from the dungeon set, or maybe an icicle piece, or jungle tree, whatever. He can hide a little bit better, so that's cool. But problem with that is small and medium. He's also vulnerable to some auto-destroy powers. So let's look at his stats. He has 4 life and 2 defense, so pretty squishy. But he's only 60 points, so not a super demanding price for that survivability. He's got 5 move, 6 range is cool to see, and 3 attacks. So his pistol shoots pretty far. I think in classic Heroscape, 6 is about average. In Age of Annihilation and Isolation, 6 is slightly above average. I feel like there's a lot of 5 or 4 ranged figures, but 6 is on the upper end in terms of just within the Age of Annihilation roster of units. So that's cool to see. Nothing too much to write home about in terms of his stats. He's just he can take a couple hits, but he'll go down fast. This is where he starts to get kind of interesting. So Glide in 13. This is sort of a twist on the Airborne Elite's drop power. Harrigan does not start the game on the battlefield. If Harrigan has not been placed on the battlefield before revealing a numbered order marker, you may roll the 20-sided die. If you roll a 13 or higher, place Harrigan on an empty space. You cannot place Harrigan adjacent to other figures. Then you may move any or all of your unrevealed order markers to this army card. So this is in some ways this is quite a buff to the drop. Let me check. I just want to refresh my memory on the airborne. So the airborne. Okay, so the airborne will drop 13 or higher. Okay, so this all around, this is a improved version of airborne elite's drop, and the reason for that is even though it's the same roll, this is every time you roll for it, every single time you reveal a numbered order marker. So whereas the airborne elite, they have to do it once. They can only do it once per round at the start of the round. Tuck Harrigan is going to have a lot more opportunities to glide in if it's on every single numbered order marker. So you're rolling for it 3 times in a round. It's possible he doesn't show up, just like with the airborne, but it's much more likely. You have so many more opportunities to get that 13 or higher and for him to glide in. And then what's cool is that once, if he glides in on turn 2, and you decide, I want to use him, I'm going to glide him into a nice spot on the map where he's getting, 6 range, 4 attack. Cool, you can do that. You can move any or all of your unrevealed order markers to this army card. I really enjoy figures that offer order marker flexibility, like with the Marvel Master set. I really like Red Skull, where you can just put all your markers on him and then you can activate whomever you want. I like Rygarn from VC. Rygarn allows you once per round, you can move an order marker from his card onto someone else within 6 spaces. So, you can flex your strategy as the battle demands. And then this is really cool too. Like you can, even if Wing Commander... even if Tuck comes in at not the best time in the game, you can still adapt to it by moving your order markers. That problem doesn't really exist for the airborne because you will know before you place order markers. Yeah, so at the start of each round, before you place order markers. So you'll be able to plan your strategy based on that round. You'll be able to plan your round strategy based on whether or not the airborne drop in. So it doesn't really apply to them, but it's just cool to see. Excuse me, been talking a lot. I'm going to take a swig. Hang on. All right. It's just cool to see that he can drop in at a less than ideal time, and you can still adjust your turn if you want to capitalize on his drop there. So that's really cool. And then this is a very simply evasive one. Harrigan increases his defense value by 1 when defending against a non-adjacent figure. So a lot of figures have different versions of evasive. I think the best version is the Elite Onyx Vipers. Elite Onyx, let's see what they got. Yeah, the Elite Onyx from Classic Heroscape. These are repaints of the Venox. They have evasive 8. So it's the same idea, but they get to buff it to 8 defense when they're being attacked non-adjacent. He gets, if someone's shooting at him, he gets buffed to 3 defense. Nothing to write home about, but it's cool that he has it, So, yeah, not a whole lot to say about him other than he's cool in the lore. I like him and the Vorid Glide Strikers we're about to talk about now. Visually, I like them thematically. I like them conceptually. And I like this background that they come from. Again, I don't know if this is supposed to be Volorak's homeworld or the region of Valhalla that Volorak comes from, or if this is meant to be the Vorid's homeworld. When I initially looked at it, I thought of it as the Vorid homeworld. That's going to just be my headcanon. But if they start releasing more Volorak figures that also have this background art that are not Vorid, then okay, fine, that's probably Volorak's homeworld. You get the idea, or homeland. You can get the idea. But yeah, not too much to write home about. Kind of an airborne elite type, hero with a bit more order marker flexibility. And yeah, he's cool. He's hype. So now let's look at his squad here. These are the Vorid Glide Strikers. Again, the sculpts are on point. Look at those rifles, man. That's cool. It's cool. So yeah, this is why I just imagine them all coming from this cool like village, or this big, not village, but this big bustling city full of these little critters, and they got the cool tech and stuff. I love that. I do want to. Victory on wings! Glide Strikers swoop in to save the day. Headline from the West Dam Tribune. So they have their own newspaper. Like, that's the society these guys come from. I like that. Those little flourishes I enjoy in terms of the lore. So yeah, do read the lore. Age of Annihilation has some cool lore, man. But yeah, look at the sculpts here. Badass. Look at this. Look at those rifles. Just chef's kiss. Mwah. Beautiful. All right, let's pull up their card here, and looks like that's going to give me some trouble. Let's try that again. Anyway, while that's loading, we'll go ahead and look at the card here. And yeah, so they are a unique squad. They're scouts. They are precise. So scouts, this is important because they can be buffed by the Venok Warlord. So if Venok Warlord was in your team, yeah, I don't know why it's doing this, but we'll go ahead and just might be something with the firewall. I'm not sure. I don't know why it's doing that, but we'll go ahead and have the cards up. So let's see, Vorid, there's scouts, and so if you have Venok Warlord on your team, they can be buffed to 6 move, so that they can't fly. They're not a flying unit. They can glide in. They can't fly wherever they want to go. But we will get to that after we look at their stats. They are 4 base move, they are 6 range, so a squad of 4 with 6 range is pretty cool. They only have 2 attack, but only 65 points. Only 65 points for a 4-man squad. I think that's pretty cool. And then they also have the same evasive 1, defense 3. So yeah, I mean, if they get engaged, they're going to be in some trouble. They can maybe shrug off some weak, moderate ranged attacks. It's alright. But let's look at a glider landing. Vorid glide strikers do not start the game on the battlefield. Before revealing an order marker on this army card, you may place 1 glide striker from this card that has not been destroyed onto an empty space. You cannot place that figure adjacent to other figures. The placed figure cannot move normally this turn. Okay, now I think that still means you can attack on that turn. It doesn't say anything about not attacking, so you could land him and then still attack, but you just can't move until your next turn with them. So that's my understanding of them there. And then, yeah, what's cool about this is that it's like the drop, except that you don't have to roll for it. They just drop in. You can only do it once per, let's see, before revealing an order marker on this army card, you may place. So you don't have to, but they all start off the board on their card. And so when you reveal your order marker, you can decide, okay, I'm going to put one here and then I'll attack with him. I guess the challenging... I feel like you would want to get these guys onto the board kind of early. And my reason for thinking that is if you get them onto the board early before the enemy can start attacking them, so at least you can at least get 1 or 2 turns with them where they're attacking with 3 or 4 figures. Because I think these guys are going to die pretty fast, you know? So you want to keep them alive, but they're going to be kind of hard to keep alive, you know? I don't know. I don't know what to think of these guys. I don't know. I mean, they're visually great, but I just, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know when is the right time to drop them in, and I feel like you drop one in, next turn the opponent's going to kill one, and then drop another in, they'll kill one, and I just feel like you're not going to have too many opportunities to attack with 2 or more of these guys. You have to kind of protect them. Although I suppose if you develop first with a screen of tanky melee units, like if you have Knights of Weston, move them out to form the protective wall, and then gradually you're dropping them, you're dropping the Vorid glide strikers behind the screen, and then you get to a point where they're all on height and they can all shoot down onto their targets. That's possible, but I guess at that point, you know, you're spending a lot of turns. That's the other thing. To get all 4 of these guys onto the board, you have to spend 4 order markers. That's at least, it's going to take 1.5 rounds to get these guys onto the board fully. I don't know, but they are only 65 points. That's kind of cool, and they can be buffed to 6 move. Again, cool. I don't know what to think about these guys personally. I'll want to get my hands on them and play with them, but I'm on them right now. So yeah, I don't know what's happening with the images. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and just I'm going to go off of these. You know, if we like for this one, if I try to blow up the card, let me see if that opens up there. Yeah, I think it's giving me the same issue, so I don't know what's going on. But in any case, we'll leave these open and we'll continue the discussion there. That's what I have for the new Volorak faction. Oh, this one loaded. That's weird. It's just being temperamental. Don't know why. But that's the new Vorid, the Vorids, and for Volorak. And yeah, I think I'll be a bit more interested in Volorak once more units get released for it. But I think right now these are just sort of like the initial first steps of Volorak into the faction, and we have yet to see how further it's going to be developed. Okay, but speaking of new factions, speaking of new units and new builds to come out, we've got a big one to talk about here with the Score Dire. These bug boys here. Oh my word. Look at this. How would you like to see this? How would you like to pull over a rock in your backyard and find this thing underneath? Probably wouldn't like it. Probably wouldn't like it, I would wager. These are one of, I think, 4 units we are going to talk about that are part of... no, 5. 5. Correction, 5. 5 new units released in this next wave of figures that are part of the Skordire species and all part of this Oathbound Queen Maladrix faction. What is it? The hive of these creatures. I've been encouraging people to read the bios of these characters, especially check out the bios of these little bug creatures and Queen Maladrix herself, because as horrifying as they are visually, they have a pretty tragic backstory, and I was somewhat moved by it, I have to say. For, backstory written about plastic figures, I was it kind of pulled at my heartstring a little bit. So do read the backstory on these guys. It's well written. So we're talking about the Oathbound Phalanx, and this goes pretty clearly with the Oathbound Legionnaires, so we may have to merge our discussion of both of them. Let me see if the rest of the images open up okay here. Maybe they're coming through okay. This is kind of spoiling what's coming up, but that's fine. Just get them prepared, get them loaded up, and yes, yeah, we'll get to this guy in a second. Okay, but let's start off with these Skordire. I'll go ahead and close out some of these other ones here. Get rid of that. This is almost like a stream, except I'm not streaming. Where I'm having all these technical problems. I used to stream more on Twitch, and that was plagued by technical issues. All kinds of things were going wrong with those. But let's clear that out. Okay, I'm gonna try and do some discussion first of the Oathbound Phalanx, and then we'll, if we need to bleed over into the Legionnaires, we will. But let's start out with the Phalanx here. So the idea is, these bugs, they're all part of a massive hive of creatures that has been recruited by General Revna into her army, and these Oathbound Legionnaires can be built into this Oathbound Phalanx, and the Legionnaires can jump off of it. So you have a lot of flexibility on whether or not you want to charge up the Phalanx or pull bugs off of the Phalanx so that they can go and do little, janitorial work around the map, stuff like that. Okay. Look at that sculpt. Unbelievable. Look at that thing. It's all they fit it all on one. They fit it on one hex. It's crazy. The thing is nuts. Oh man, I'm excited to get a hold of these guys. I love bugs. With VC, I like the bees. I like the ants. I like the Zualtiaka fire ants from VC. I love my bugs. Love the spiders from classic Heroscape. It's just great to see. So let's go ahead and open up their card. No, this one here. Here we go. Okay, so the Oathbound Phalanx. Look at this. All these are where all of their line of sight is calculated. Basically, wherever the teeth are. As long as you can see a figure from one point of teeth. I think the designers were having fun with that. And of course the entire body is a hit zone, but that's just, you're probably not going to see many more units that have this many. I think this breaks the record. This takes the cake for most number of line of sight points on a figure. This is a treat. Oh, he's a devourer. Oh, now we're talking. Now we'll get those Demutifs out. Maybe a Hellforge Mandukor, maybe not the best synergy for Demutifs, but Oathbound Phalanx, yeah. I think surrounded with Demutifs, he's going to hit pretty hard. You get this guy up to 6 attack, he's next to 3 Demutifs. It's crazy. It's crazy to think about. Okay, alright, enough. We're getting off topic. So he's a Skordire. It's a unique hero. It's a devourer, terrifying. It's just a wall of these Oathbound Legionnaire bugs. So first, let's look at... Oh, okay, yeah. So it's a single hero. So yeah, 3 defense, 3 life. So it can fall apart pretty easily. You can see that. But we will talk about one falls, the swarm survives. Yeah, so we'll talk about this one here. But he's only got 3 lives. 5 move. All the other Skordire move pretty fast, but I can understand why this giant blob of bugs moves a bit slower. So 5 move is still pretty good for how huge this figure is. And indeed huge. 3 attack, and 3 defense, But let's talk about the defense first, because we have this one falls, the swarm survives power. When an Oathbound Phalanx would receive 1 or more wounds, so like if Subakna landed next to him and dropped 7 attack on him, you may remove an Oathbound Legionnaire figure from this army card and destroy it. If you do, ignore all wounds the Oathbound Phalanx would have received. So you if you want, you can make this figure a lot more survivable than it might first appear on the card. If you want to, you don't have to, and that's what's kind of cool about this build. You can put Legionnaires onto this card to give them essentially like exoskeleton markers on the Mesodemons. So that's really cool. And you can see here, receive 1 or more wounds. And so as far as I know, that could be from disengagement attacks, or that could be from special power, auto wound powers. That could be from special attacks. So you really can. Whereas with the Mesodemons, I think you can only, let's see, one of the Mesos. Excuse me. So yeah, the the 2 exoskeleton markers there. These you can only remove to negate wounds from a normal attack. Yep, against a normal attack here. But it looks like these guys, you can just take off a Legionnaire to negate any wounds received. That's my understanding of it, and if so, that's really cool. So this can be a heck of a lot more survivable if you want it to be. We can see here there are, while it looks like there are many, in truth, there's only 4 figures to the squad. But still, you could, if you wanted to, you could give this like 4 super exoskeleton markers, essentially, through those figures. Let me take another swig here. There's a lot to talk about in this wave. Excuse me. All right, yeah, there's a lot to talk about in this wave. So that's One Falls, the Swarm Survives. Now let's talk about Break the Link. Excuse me. So before taking a turn with the Oathbound Phalanx, you may place any Oathbound Legionnaire figures you control from this army card onto any spaces adjacent to the Oathbound Phalanx. After revealing an order marker on the Oathbound Phalanx, and after taking a turn with it, you may take a turn with any Oathbound Legionnaires you control. So cool that you have this bonding. The Phalanx can move alongside a squad of Legionnaires, so you can have 5 figure activations potentially in a turn. What's also cool is that if you want your Oathbound not to be vulnerable, you can just put them into the Phalanx if you want to save them for deployment later on, and then as the Phalanx is moving, you can just drop them off. And so this, before taking a turn with the Phalanx, you drop the Legionnaire off of the Phalanx onto the board, and then after taking a turn with the Phalanx, you can take a turn with any, you may place any Oathbound Legionnaire figure. So it's not restricted to 1. It's not like you can only take 1 Legionnaire off of the Phalanx per turn. If you have all 4 on the Phalanx, you can drop all 4 around the Phalanx, which is just really, I think it'll be really cool to see visually on a board when like this wall of bugs is moving, and then just 4 bug figures land off of it in one turn. Boom, they're there. And then as soon as the Phalanx attacks, then the 4 deposited bugs of the Legionnaire squad, they go out and do their work. You're going to have a lot of flexibility in how you play with that. So I think that's really cool. And then these 2 powers tie into All Is One, their special attack. You may attack once for each Oathbound Legionnaire figure on this army card. When attacking a small or medium figure with All As One, if you roll a skull on every die, the defending figure cannot roll any defense dice and is immediately destroyed. So this automatically reminded me of the Wretchets of Bogdan. Wretchets, let's see, there they are. Okay, cool. Excuse me. So Lethal Sting. When rolling attack dice against a small or medium figure, so that is their restriction. If a Wretched, they have 3 attack as well, and it's not a special attack too, so they could potentially buff it, although I don't know why you would want to in this case. When rolling attack dice against a small or medium figure, if a Wretched rolls a skull on every dice, defending figure cannot roll any defense dice and is immediately destroyed. So as far as the Phalanx here, if you roll a skull on every die, when attacking a small or medium figure. Okay, darn it. Yeah. Okay, so okay, never mind. Disregard that whole point. For some reason, I thought in my mind that was eliminated for the Oathbound Phalanx. But yeah, you can attack any figure with this special attack. But if you attack a small or medium, you get that potential auto destroy. If you get a skull on each of them, each of the dice rolled. So I think that's really cool. And what's neat about this is if
if you can do this once for each Oathbound Legionnaire figure on this card. So if you have if you have all 4 of the Legionnaires from the Legionnaire squad, if you have all 4 of them are placed on this card, you can attack all as one 4 times. So that's 4 opportunities you have to roll all skulls and destroy a small and medium figure. So a charged up Phalanx, if it was to engage, someone's Raylan, good Raylan, old Raylan from the original Master set, who was a really powerful figure. If you engaged with the Phalanx and all 4 Legionnaires were on this card, you could roll 4 attacks of 3, and if one of them was all skulls, she's gone. She's just dead right there. So I think that's really cool. I would be curious. I play competitive Heroscape, but I'm not so immersed in it that I, would presume to know just at a glance how good these figures are going to be. I just don't know. I'm mixed right now. I just feel like they don't have high enough attack to really be too frightening. Although I think the fact that, you can move with the Phalanx plus a squad of 4 right here, a squad of 4 with these Legionnaires. I don't. Yeah, I mean, that's 5 figures in one turn, and and interesting. You may attack once for each Oathbound Legionnaire figure on this army card. So if you don't have any Legionnaires on this card, you can't use all as one special attack. If my reading of that is correct, it's interesting. They look like a lot of fun to play. How competitively viable they are, for me, remains to be seen. So. Really cool, really cool conceptually. And remember, Demuta fans, and I know there are many of you out there, Demuta fans, let's start playtesting this strategy here. Devour. Let's surround the Phalanx with a bunch of wolf troll things and see how we can see how much we can buff him to. Actually, well, if he's a single space figure, you could surround him with 6 Demutifs. He'd have no one to attack at that point. Okay, fine. 5 Demutifs, you leave 1 hex open for his target. You can buff him to 8 attack. That's going to be an S tier strategy right there, I think. All right, enough on that. We're getting off topic once again. Let's talk about the Oathbound Legionnaires. We've already sort of talked about them a little bit. These guys are the foot soldiers. They make up this mass of figures right here. Foot soldiers of Queen Maladrix's hive. And they're also Skordire. Cool. I like this... this way of designing the sculpts, in that there's actually 3 times 4, so there's 12 of these bugs actually present on the board, but they're just clumped into groups of 3. So great, visually great. Now look at the card itself. So they're soldiers, yes indeed, legionnaires. So Skordire unique squad. If you have Marcus on your team, these guys are moving to 6. Just as a little anecdote, one of my friends I play Heroscape with occasionally, whenever we discover a synergy we weren't aware of, or it's just like, oh yeah, this unit buffs this unit, there'll usually be a pause, and then he'll say, somehow, Kosumet can buff air elementals, or Kosumet can buff Boreos from VC. So it's like, oh yeah, this werewolf is next to I'm moving Boreos, and Boreos gets 5 attack because he's next to Kosumet, and then my friend would say, somehow. So if Marcus is on a team with Oathbound Legionnaires, you can buff their move to 6 somehow. But there you go, it's possible. So anyway, just a funny little anecdote from my Heroscape group. They have 6 move, which is good. 4-figure squad, 6 move, it's great. 3 attack, 3 defense, pretty good. 50 points. That strikes me as a pretty good bargain. One handicap I guess they have is that they are a unique squad. I was thinking too, what if you could draft these guys in multiples, and you could have 3 squads of Oathbound Legionnaires and put them all out, and so you could just have a ton of them jumping on and off the Phalanx. It'd be cool to see, but I can see why that might get a little broken after a while. So that's a unique squad. So you only get 4 of these guys, but they're only 50 points. Disengaged. This is great. So they don't care where they go. They can just disengage from everyone. They're like orcs, or they're like Grut orcs. That's great. And they have climb ×2. So like a lot of squad figures that are small 3, fast-moving squad figures like the spiders or the Margnagrubs, they have climb ×2. So that's really cool. So they have they're able to scale height that's taller than their sculpts, which is cool. And then become one. So this is also synergizing back to the Break the Link, or the Oathbound Phalanx. At the start of the game, if you have the Oathbound Phalanx in your army, then you may place any or all. I like that too. Remember with the Vorid Glide Strikers, it could only be one Vorid landing per turn or per order marker. These guys, if you want, you can just load them all onto the Phalanx right there. Every single Legionnaire you have, if you want. Or you could do some, or you could just do one. Or none. Up to you. You may place any or all Oathbound Legionnaire figures on your Oathbound Phalanx army card instead of placing them normally. At the start of the game. Okay, at the start of the game. So you can choose to do that if you want. Instead of attacking with an Oathbound Legionnaire, if you control the Oathbound Phalanx and it is adjacent to that Legionnaire, you may place that Oathbound Legionnaire onto the Oathbound Phalanx's army card. Yeah, so instead of attacking. So you have to give up an attack with them, but you can load them on. And I don't think there is a limit to how many you can do per turn. So if you move up with the Phalanx and then all the Oathbound move with it, if you want, you can throw all of them onto the card or some of them onto the card to start playing around with Break the Link and One Fall Swarm Survives. Cool. Again, both with the Legionnaires and the Phalanx, I'm not sure yet exactly how that's going to play out competitively or how strong it'll be competitively. All I know is it sounds like a lot of fun, and it's very visually thematic and mechanically thematic, and I think more important from a design... I would imagine this, I'm not a game designer myself, but I feel, and I also would say this as someone who plays the game, I much more appreciate units that feel thematic than are competitive. If a unit's competitive, whatever, fine, But, I think I play Heroscape for fun more than I do competitively, and so I like having figures that feel thematic and feel like the units depicted or the art depicted here. I like them to feel mechanically distinct and mechanically interesting. And I care less about how competitive they are, ultimately. I want to have fun with the figures, ultimately. It's all about fun. It's all about fun, right? So anyway, that's the Oathbound Legionnaires, and then that's the Oathbound Phalanx, pretty closely tied mechanically. Now let's go into the other Skodire squad. Once again, Rising Tide is making Heroscape history. Now, we've known about this because the Avalon Hill releases, so it's not like a spoiler. We knew this was coming, but it's official now, and these guys have been officially revealed as part of Renegade's Age of Annihilation. We have our first 5-figure squad. 5 figures. It's never been done before in Heroscape. Probably for good reason. These guys, of course, are a unique squad. Can you imagine having 3 squads of these guys? You have 15 figures? That'd be nuts. So yeah, glad they're a unique squad. I think of all types of creatures that you would give a 5-figure squad to, giant bug monsters, yeah, that makes sense. That tracks, right? So they're guards. They are relentless. Okay, speaking of Kosumet, let's get Kosumet in here. Buffing a bunch of Festering Honor Guard. Oh, yeah, that's their name. The Festering Honor Guard. Yes, my eyes just went straight to their art. They are the Festering Honor Guard. They are relentless, so Kosumet, if he's next to any of them, he can buff them to 3 attack. And as guards, if Warden 816 is in the army, he can buff them to 7 move. Somehow. But he can. So you can get 5 figures with 7 move if you have Warden in your army, which is amazing. 6 move, 1 range, 2 attack, 3 defense. So 2 attack is not great, but again, you're getting 5 attacks of 2 in 1 turn. If they're going after cheap, common squad chaff, then yeah, they'll probably do a wound or 2 here and there. Only 60 points, that's pretty cool, but let's talk about their powers. Actually, one more anecdote. There was a beach that my friend and I would go to a couple years ago, and I remember I liked walking at that beach at night. Probably ill-advisedly, probably not wise to walk on a beach at night alone, but I like to. I'd put on a podcast and just walk on the sand, and I'd take off my shoes sometime. And there was one night where I was walking alone. I forget what time of year it was, and I felt something crawling over my feet, and I was like, "Gah, what is that?" And it turned out it was little sand crabs. It was sand crab spawning season. Tiny little sand, totally harmless. They just feel they're creepy crawlies when they're crawling over your bare feet. So but sand crabs. And so I looked up, what does the sand crab look like, because I wasn't really aware that these creatures existed, and I thought like, because I discovered the sand crabs before during Avalon Hill's campaign. So Avalon Hill had not canceled Age of Annihilation yet, hadn't yet canceled it, and so I was like, oh, these guys look kind of like Festering Honor Guard. And so anytime my friend and I would go to that beach, he plays Heroscape too, so anytime we go to the beach, it's like, gotta watch out, the Festering Honor Guard, they're gonna be popping out of the sand, you gotta watch out. Queen Maladrix, she's taking this beach, she's infested it, gotta watch out, man. So anyway, that's a little fun little anecdote. We've been talking about the Festering Honor Guard for a very long time, even before Renegade got the permission to license Heroscape. Even before Renegade even touched Heroscape, my friends and I were joking about the Festering Honor Guard. So anyway, love to see it. Okay. As far as powers, Parasite, this is gruesome. For the entire game, if one of your Festering Honor Guard is on a unique hero's army card at the end of the round, you must roll the 20-sided die. If you roll a 17 or higher, destroy the hero. So it's like a chest burster thing from Alien. He's just like, bleh, he's dead, and this giant bug bursts at him. It's disgusting. It's vile. If a Festering Honor Guard is on a unique hero's army card when that hero is destroyed by this special power or by a normal attack. Oh, okay, yes, I remember reading this, and I want to talk about this. The Festering Honor Guard is on a unique hero's army card when that hero is destroyed by this special power, or by a normal attack, special attack, or leaving engagement. So anything that could destroy the hero, essentially. Almost anything that could destroy the hero from an opposing figure. Special power, normal attack, special attack, leaving engagement. Anytime that hero is destroyed, you just place a Festering Honor Guard on the space. There's no roll for it. You only roll a 17 or higher if at the end of the round, if that figure has a Festering Honor Guard on their card. So the Festering is, and we'll come to it because this connects with Queen Maladrix, but essentially she has the ability to infest a hero with a Festering Honor Guard, and then there's like a bug like incubating in the person. It's like a chest burster, right? There's a creature incubating inside the person's body, and then either if the hero dies just from a normal part of the battle, then he'll die, and then this bug will burst out of him and then spawn in his place. But also too, the bug itself is parasitic, and it's a parasitic relationship because the bug could kill the host at some point at the end of the round. 17 or higher, it's unlikely, but it could happen. Just gruesome. To me, it's almost like, are we sure this is still a kid's game? Like, it's a brutal image, and I love it. I love my bugs. So yeah, super excited about these guys. Motherless Rage. If Queen Maladrix the Conqueror is in your army, when she is destroyed, you may move any unrevealed order markers from her army card to this army card. Festering Honor Guards add 1 to their attack value if Queen Maladrix is in your army and is destroyed. So essentially, they are her royal guard. Of all the Skodire, these ones are her most prized warriors, and they defend her with zealous loyalty. And so if she dies, they get furious, they get angry, and they hit a little harder. So they can buff themselves to 3 attack if she's dead. I have to say, that's not super impressive. Even that's not impressive, because it's like, you don't want to lose Queen Maladrix. I would want these guys to die before she dies. I would use these guys to defend Queen Maladrix. So it's odd to me. Like, I feel like that Motherless Rage is not something you should try to get. It's just a nice bonus to get if Queen Maladrix dies, or at least that's my view. I don't see a reason why you would go out of your way to get Maladrix killed just to get +1 attack to these cheapo little squad figures, But yeah, so I'm looking at that mainly as a bonus in the unfortunate scenario where you lose Queen Maladrix early in the fight. So it's cool to see. And then they have Climb too. So yeah, they're pretty nimble. So yeah, making history, Heroscape. Once again, making Heroscape with the 5-figure squad. And it's really cool to see that they are officially in the game now. We've known about them. We knew they were coming. Now they're here. Great to see. And now, to top it all off, we will come to the Queen herself. I am not the only one who has not just been anticipating Queen Maladrix, but just really, really liking the sculpt, liking the thematic presence, and yeah, she's already got a fan base. We all love the queen. She's great. I mean, my friend hates her. My friend hates all the bugs. That's fine. It just makes me like them more. I love the bugs. So yeah, that's Queen Maladrix the Conqueror. Amazing art. Look at that sculpt right there. If I had to pick a favorite sculpt from this wave, it might be her. And again, I like seeing the turquoise on her sculpt here. It's just great. So yeah, we've got her card open now. All right, Queen Maladrix the Conqueror. This is the glue that'll hold the well, actually, technically, I was going to say the glue that holds the Skodier army together, but technically she really only applies to the Festering Honor Guard. So you could just take her and the Honor Guard and then leave behind the Oathbound guys. But if you want a thematic army, she's going to be your leader. She's going to be leader right there. Okay, so she is a Skodier. She's a unique hero. She is a queen. This is pretty important. We'll come back to the queen piece. She's terrifying and she's huge. So as a huge figure, she is immune to auto wound powers. She's double space, so keep that in mind. But just look at the size of her, and just gonna have some great board presence indeed. She has 6 life, 6 move, 4 attack, 5 defense. She's a melee. I want to bring this up because she's 160 points. There's a VC unit I really like. Morgoloth, the big demon guy, Morgoloth. So he is he's like the head honcho of the skull demons, or like the big demon that could bond with the the acolytes of Vorganund, and I really like them. I like the whole demon. I like mesodemons. Don't take this out of context, but I do like demons in Heroscape. Okay, we'll clarify there. Okay, but Morgoloth here. If you look at him here, he's got double attack. I think Queen Maladrix. Yeah, so Queen Maladrix has. There's a lot of comparison between Queen Maladrix and Morgoloth. She has 4 base attack and double attack. He has 4 base attack and double attack. 6/6 life move. Indeed, that is 6 life, 6 move. Indeed, and Morgoloth only has 4 defense, whereas Queen Maladrix has 5. And she's also got these extra powers here. Now, Morgoloth has important powers too. Demon leadership's kind of cool. If you have a bunch of mesodemons, they can get 6 move. That's kind of cool. And then Swarming Vermin. He bonds, as he's a Dark Lord, so he bonds with the Wolves of Badru. And so the Wolves of Badru, when they're within 5 clear sight spaces of him, they essentially get disengaged. That's a cool power. And Morgoloth is very good. Let's don't get it twisted. Morgoloth, I'm not here to say Morgoloth isn't good. I just think it's interesting to see what his points are going to buy you compared to what your points will buy with Queen Maladrix, because there's a lot of similarities. So Morgoloth in classic points is 140, and you can tell he's good because he goes up 20 points in Delta. So he's well regarded, and rightfully so. He's a good unit. But Queen Maladrix, she's 160 by herself. She gets 1 extra defense, and she gets these 2 extra powers here. So I think there's potentially a debate which one offers more just raw power and utility for their specific build. Obviously, Queen is not going to work well with Wolves, and Morgoloth is not going to work well with Festering Honor Guard, of course. But it just sort of be like, what would you do? Do you do Queen Maladrix and Honor Guard, or do you do Morgoloth and Wolves? Which one would you prefer? Wolves are more pricier than the Festering Honor Guard too, and they're a common squad, so you'd want to draft multiples of them. Whereas the Honor Guard, you only get 1 squad of them, 60 points. So this build is technically cheaper than. I'm going on a crazy tangent. Just have that in the back of your mind, that Morgoloth comparison with Queen Maladrix here. So let's check out her powers. So Festering Honor Guard Barding, very simply. Barding? Did I say Barding? She's not a horse. She doesn't have a cloth over her back. She's not a horse. Bonding. Festering Honor Guard Bonding. After revealing an order marker on Queen Maladrix, you can take a turn with her Festering Honor Guard. Very simple, straightforward. Yep, so after revealing an order marker on the Queen and before taking a turn with her. So a lot of times it's the reverse. The squad gets the bonding and they can bond with the hero, but in this case, the hero is bonding with the squad. And I like that. It makes sense. She wants her soldiers to go out before her and clear the path as she moves in to protect her as she's going for her target. So that's cool too. Double attack, very simply, she gets 2 attacks. 2 attacks of 4, that's solid. That's good output. Very good. This is the part that synergizes most, I would say, most interestingly with the Festering Honor Guard. So Infestation 9, after taking a turn with Queen Maladrix, you may choose a unique hero adjacent to Queen that does not have a Festering Honor Guard on its army card, and roll the d20. If you roll a 9 or higher, you infest the hero. You roll a 9 or higher, you place one of your destroyed Festering Honor Guard on that hero's army card. That's really cool, because it's, you send out your Festering Honor Guard early to die. You get a lot of them to die, and then as Queen Maladrix is following them with her bonding, following them up, she can infest heroes all around her. And then you get that gruesome parasite power that's possible. It's grim and brutal, but I mean it's cool. So Queen Maladrix can sustain her Festering Honor Guard by plopping them into nearby heroes. And so as she's killing heroes, or as her honor guard are parasitizing them, then they can just blow up and turn into more Festering Honor Guard. So she can sort of sustain a loop of honor guard, dying and rebirthing, which is really, really cool. Brutal, but really, really cool. And anyway, that's all I've really got about Queen Maladrix, other than she looks great. She looks really solid. I'm super excited to play her and the Festering Honor Guard. Really strong first impression of her. I just feel like, just from reading the card, I can get a pretty good sense of how it plays, but I've been wrong about that before. Where I'll play a figure and I'll look at a card having never played the figure, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's how it plays. Yeah, I think I have its place in the game. And then I actually play it or play against it, and I'm like, oh yeah, I was way wrong. So I could be wrong about her, but I don't know. She seems pretty straightforward. She seems great. She seems really great. So excited about her. And now, with that out of the way, we can get into the promo figures. And so next up is the Thyraxis Dragoon, also a member of the Skodire. This is it is an organized spring 2025 OP, which I believe is organized play promo. Now, I made a mistake in my first video in the series where I said I wasn't sure if the promo figures would be available on the store. Let me, if I can take a loudspeaker and just declare it from the hilltops. It is confirmed. Every single one of these promo figures, they might be unavailable for a time. They will all become available for individual purchase. I was wrong. That's the info. So yes, all of these, make no mistake, even though this figure might not go on sale on Renegade's website for a while, you will be able to get it eventually. It's a promo figure, so I believe the idea is if you go to Renegade's sanctioned tournaments that appear on their their battle network, and certain game stores will be given copies of this figure, these promo figures, and they'll distribute it out to winners or however they want to, or as raffle prizes, whatever. So I have a copy of the new Shiori and a copy of Cornelius Breach, and I got those at tournaments I went to that were part of the the battle network. So I either won them as prizes or got them in raffles. So that's the idea here, that this guy, they're going to print a bunch of these guys initially, give them out as promos to promote organized play, and then after that initial run, you'll be able to buy it separately. So just want to be clear about that. Everyone will have a chance to get their hands on a Thyraxis Dragon if they want to. Okay. And personally, I want to. This is a unit to be excited about. At least from what I like in Heroscape, I'm excited about this one. So this is our... It's interesting too, because this is the first time we've seen a humanoid Skodire. I don't know if this character is considered Skodire. I think it says it talks about it in the lore. But like you would think like it's just this sort of rhinoceros, this rhino bug here, that's the only thing. But no, it's being ridden by a humanoid bug thing. So anyway, okay, so be it, But yeah, really cool sculpt, certainly. But let's look at the card. This is why. There's a lot going on this card that I want to talk about, and have talked about with certain other Heroscape YouTubers, and you may see that in time. I've had some discussions with other Heroscape YouTubers and other Heroscapers about this unit before, and there's hype. Hype is real. So, okay. I'll add a little note about Revna later on. I do remember I wanted to talk a little bit about the Revna faction, but let's get the card out of the way. We have it on screen. Let's do it. Skodire, unique hero. Here we go. Now we're talking. Hive Lord. Remember that. Terrifying, huge. So huge, lots of auto wound power immunities. 6 move, 6 life, 1 range, 5 attack, 5 defense, 195 points. Why is this so enticing to me? Because my favorite build in the game is Torkulna and Marden Nagrubs, okay? Torky Grubs. I love it. Specifically Torkulna, Marden Nagrubs with old Raylin, original Rise of the Valkyrie Raylin, and then whatever points you have left for filler, you know. But that core of at least 3 squads of Marden Nagrubs, Torkulna, and old Raylin. It's mechanically, I've got lots of builds I like. This is the one I have the most experience with, and I think it's the one I'm sentimentally very attached to it, so I like it a lot. But how does Thyraxis Dragoon compare to Torkulna? Well, rather well. If you look at, they have exactly the same stats, except for Torkulna has 1 extra base attack, so, you know, gotta love Torky, gotta love him. But still pretty good. 5 is nothing to sneeze at. It has the same survivability as Torkulna, also huge, just like Torkulna. And so Thyraxis can bond with the Marden Nagrubs, and if we need a refresher on those, I'll pull them up here. Nagrubs. Okay, so the Marden Nagrubs, they have Hive Lord life bonding. Before taking a turn with them, you can first take a turn with any Hive Lord you control. It does not have to be Morrow, any Hive Lord you control. Before moving the chosen Hive Lord, you may destroy 1 adjacent Marden Nagrub you control. If you destroy a Marden Nagrub with Hive Lord life bonding, if you do, you don't have to, but if you do, remove a wound marker from the chosen Hive Lord's army card. So, yes, okay? You see what's going on here? So, if you have Thyraxis Dragoon surrounded by a bunch of grubs, if Thyraxis takes some wounds, you can eat a grub and then heal wounds off of the Dragoon. This is super exciting to me, especially because the stat line is so close to Torkulna. So there are other Hive Lords in Heroscape. Let's pull them up now. Let's do class and Hive Lord. The one that I don't have a whole lot of experience with is Kontarna, just because the figure is nearly impossible. It's a VC Morrow Hive Lord. The original figure is nearly impossible to find because it's part of a long discontinued miniatures war game. Confrontation, I think it's called. So yeah, I would have to 3D print him at this stage, and I just, for that reason, I haven't 3D printed him. I don't have a lot of experience. So Kontarna is pretty good, 4 defense, 5 life. But if you look at all the others, Subakna is good, but I'm not sure he's what you would want for a Nagrub's army. You want Subakna for other reasons, but not necessarily for Nagrubs. He's got 5 life, 3 defense, so he can die pretty quickly if you expose him to damage. And then Wosaga, she's only got 4 life and 4 defense, so, you know, she can survive a couple of hits, but she can die surprisingly fast with only 4 life. My point here is, of all of these Hive Lords, Torkulna is the one you take to tournaments for a Nagrub's build in a standard format. There might be a reverse the whip that mixes things up, but in a standard competitive event, all rules staying normal, if you want to run Nagrubs, you take Torkulna, and that's because of his 5 defense and his 6 life. And again, if I do a video talking about Torkulna Grubs, which I think I will at some point, I just like the build too much. My belief with Torkulna Grubs is it's a king army. You cannot lose Torkulna. Everything in the army has to center around protecting him. If you protect him, he'll do work, and he can win for you. If he dies too early, you're done for. That's it. Game, win condition. It's over. It's done. So that's where the old Raylin comes into play. I promise this is related to Thyraxis Dragoon. I just want to get this initial thought out of the way. The idea is you can only heal Torkulna's wounds. You can only heal 1 wound per turn with the grubs. So you want to ensure that if Torkulna is taking wounds, and he will, because everyone's going after him, you want to control the bleeding. You want it only so that he's only taken 1 wound a turn, and then you can heal him right up with the grubs. If he starts taking 2 or 3 wounds in a turn, that momentum of that steady heal momentum starts turning against you. So it's really important to have old Raylin in that army to give him 7 defense, so it becomes really difficult to get any damage onto him. You know, maybe the opponent gets 2 wounds onto him, but it's usually unlikely. Usually they're only putting 1 wound onto Torkulna with standard attacks, normal level attacks. So that's the idea there, and it's mainly because you can only heal 1 wound in a turn with your Hive Lord. Okay, so 5 defense, Raylin. That's very important for me as someone who plays this army. You don't have that with Wasaga. You only have, and that's the other thing too. the 6 lives is really important, because the 6 lives provides insurance for those rare occasions where you whiff 7 defense. It happens. Well, that's okay. Torkulna has 6 life. He can take a hit like that. It's okay. You just lick your wounds after, play more conservatively. You can recover. It can be done. But 6 life is great to provide whiff defense insurance. Wasaga doesn't really have that. It's much easier for her to whiff, even with Raylin. It's 6 defense. That extra dice does make a difference. 4 life. If she whiffs her 4 defense and someone drops a 4 attack, she's gone in 1 turn. And similar thing with Jabakna. He's got 3 defense, 5 life. He'll die pretty fast. Kontarna, he's a bit tougher. He's got 5 life, 4 defense. I still am not. I'm still iffy on that stat line. For me, you just need the meat. You just need the meat shield. You just need the meat shield, and that's what I like about Torkulna. Anyway, lots I can talk about with Torkulna. We'll save that for another video if and when I do touch base on him. But the point in talking about that here is that Thyraxis Dragoon matches that survivability stat line with Torkulna. He or she, I'm not sure. He's got 6 life and 5 defense. So with old Raylin, 7 defense, the same survivability as Torkulna. That's great. And that 6 life, they can take the occasional whiff defense hit. Hopefully, So that's what I'm really excited about. And 5 attack, yeah, it's 1 less than Torkulna. It's still good. It's still very good. And he's cheaper than Torkulna, too. Torkulna, I believe... Excuse me, gotta take another swig. Okay, sorry. This is a long video, man. But Torkulna, both in Delta and Classic, you can see he just stays put at 220. But whereas the Thyraxis Dragoon, 195. Excuse me, 195 for Thyraxis Dragoon. So you have 15 points extra to spend unless this pricing changes at some point later down the road. But initially, for the initial release, you got 15 points extra if you draft Thyraxis instead of Torkulna. This is all before discussing the powers, okay? Let's start with Battle Frenzy 16. It's the most straightforward. After attacking with Thyraxis Dragoon, roll the d20. If you roll 16 or higher, you can attack again. So it's Frenzy without move. You engage a figure, and as long as you're rolling 16 or higher at the end of an attack, you can keep attacking. So that does kind of make up for the reduction in attack from Torkulna, in the sense that you just get extra attacks. You potentially in an unlikely scenario, you might get a couple extra attacks. Great to see. And I think this was pioneered by Frost Giant of Moor, but this power does exist with other units in official Heroscape. So really cool bonus here. This is where Thyraxis gets interesting. Maddening Chitter 14. Once per round before taking a turn with the Dragoon, you may choose an enemy figure within 6 clear sight spaces and roll the d20. If you roll a 14 or higher, you may look at one unrevealed order marker on that figure's army card. You may then choose any other figure controlled by the same player and move the order marker to that figure's army card. This is wild. This is really wild. I talked earlier about how I like units that provide order marker flexibility. Mainly, I just like playing around with order markers. So I like Rygarn because he can let me switch around order markers, and I like this because you can really mess up an opponent by doing this. You can like an opponent. I feel like if an opponent is, how do I put this? If an opponent assumes that this never happens, assumes like, oh, it's not likely, it's only 14 or higher, probably won't happen to me, great. Then they're putting all their cards on their bonding units maybe, and then you just say like, I'm gonna look at that order marker. Oh, that's turn number 2? Yeah, turn number 2. I need that turn. I need to take some pressure off of me for turn number 2. I'm just gonna move that to your Sahuagin Raider, okay? So that's what you're gonna move on turn number 2. There you go. Yeah, and there's no stipulation that it has to be a unique figure, nothing, just any army card. Yeah, you don't get to bond with your knight. You don't get to take turn 2 with your knights. I'm gonna put it on Deathwalker 7000 or whatever, or just some crappy unit in the army that you don't want moving on turn 2 to buy yourself some time. Not that a person would draft 7000 with knights, but you get my point. You really can mess up the opponent. So if the opponent decides to just go all in on his, playing normally, put all of his cards on his core bonding squad, you can mess that up really easily. The other option is the opponent is aware of how dangerous Maddening Chitter can be, and they try to build around that, right? Well, if they try to build in anticipation of mattering, oh boy, we're almost done, folks. We're almost done. If the opponent tries to protect himself from the damage of Maddening Chitter, what I can see, if I was playing against Thyraxis Dragoon, what I might do is I'm like, okay, I've got 3 different army cards. All of them are pretty good, you know, and I would be okay moving with any of them on this turn. So I'm going to put order markers on all 3 or something. I'm going to spread out my order markers essentially, because it's like, you know, no matter which order marker is revealed, you know, if it gets moved to another figure, well, at least that figure is still viable, you know. But my point in saying all that is, if an opponent is afraid of Maddening Chitter and is placing his order markers differently because of Maddening Chitter, he's probably placing his order markers in a suboptimal way. Do you know what I mean? It's you know, if he wasn't going up against Maddening Chitter, he probably feels safe throwing all of his markers on his bonding squad. But now that Maddening Chitter's here, he has to consider whether he wants to take that risk. And it's kind of a similar thing that goes on with a Doomed. We'll talk about Dune. Don't worry, there's some Dune content coming on this channel soon. But Doomed is, you know, if you're up against Doomed and you've got you know, maybe multiple army cards and Dunes coming up, you don't want to put all your order markers on a single army card. No, you space it out so that if Dune gets his cripple, you are only taking off 1 order marker from that card. Something similar is happening where you're kind of, I guess, hedging your bets. You know, you're spreading out your order markers. I just think, you know, I'll want to see how this plays when I get my hands on the figure itself, but I just think Maddening Chitter is just going to really mess up your opponent's game. It's super exciting to see this. So Maddening Chitter by itself is a really interesting power, but just, I mean, Torkuln is always going to be number 1 in my heart as far as Hive Lords for my Nagrubs. As soon as I get my hands on Thyraxis Dragoon, I'm going to want to take Dragoon, Old Raylin, and a bunch of Nagrubs to a tournament. I am super competitively interested in this hero, and I'm not the only one. I am not the only one. There's some very prominent competitive Heroscapers out there who are aware of this, who I've had discussions with, and they're the ones who kind of, you know, tip me off, like, hey, keep an eye out for this one, you know. If you're a Nagrub guy, look out for this one. And when I looked at the card, I thought, oh my word. So yes, this is really exciting. This is really exciting for any Nagrubs players. Anyone who likes those Nagrubs, you guys should be paying attention to this one. So this will be really exciting. I really hope I can go to a tournament and win this thing, you know. So that'll be if I hear that this is in the prize pool at a certain tournament, I'm bringing out screw it, you know. Q9 Rats Raylin. No, I'm teasing. I don't like those super meta cheesy armies. I just don't. But you know, I would take that tournament pretty darn seriously. I would be playing to win at that tournament if this is one of the prizes. So yeah, really excited about Thyraxis Dragoon. I said I'd talk a little bit about Revna. Let's table that for now. Let's get into the last figure in this wave, or in this series of releases. And you know, like with many promo figures, this is kind of a big reveal, you know. And we have known about this figure since Avalon Hill, but it's official now. Major Q11. This is the modern version of what I believe to be Major Q10 from Swarm of the Morrow. And so here they don't actually have backstory on him. I believe there was some lore released about him, but I don't want to comment on it because I'm not. I can't. I don't know. I don't know what is considered official, or what was just what was just considered like promo material that maybe they're changing. I don't know. So the lore behind this guy is uncertain. Holy cow, look at that sculpt. Holy cow. He's got Vidar's emblem emblazoned into his armor. That is gnarly. He's got a missile on his shoulder, or I guess that's a cannon. This cannon here, he's got a freaking hammer. This guy is exciting. And this is also a very exciting unit for me competitively. I'm sure for lots of people, but I'll specifically talk about why this guy is interesting to me. So look at the sculpt. Just a beautiful mix of dark and silver and beautiful, 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 beautiful. This is great. So let's take a look at Q11. This is the figure that you will get if you pre-order any of the April release Wave 2 Rising Tide sets. So you know, just make sure that it's the April release sets you're pre-ordering, and you will get this guy. And he'll be available later on. But yeah. Okay, so he is a Soulborg. He's a unique hero. He is a major, yet another in the powerful major line. Resolute, large. He's got 4 life, 6 defense, so still very tanky, possibly dangerously tanky from a design standpoint, balance standpoint, but he's not quite Q9. At least he's not 7 defense, okay? At least we can breathe a sigh of relief there. But he's only 160 points. Only 160 points. This is... I want to talk about this. He's got 5 move. He's got 5 move, 1 base range, and then an attack of 6. It's just nuts. If this dude engages you in melee, boom, boom, you know, just slam. Just, great. And then we'll talk about his Vidar's Hammer here. But let's pull up the infamous Q9, the infamous game-breaking Q9, if I may be so bold as to say that. So, his classic points was 180. He's got 7 defense, 4 life, 4 attack, 8 range. Okay, he was 180 in classic points. That is, well, that's preposterous because look at what he is now. In Delta, he goes up 80 points more. So another 80 points he was increased. That's an enormous increase for Delta balance, and it's deserved. Q9 is a pain in the butt to fight. He is tremendously... He's one of the best. He's one of the best figures in the game, period. And honestly, even with this increase, he's still one of the best figures in the game. He's still just outstanding. So that's the stats right here. If we consider that Major Q11 has 1 less defense, 2 additional base attack. He doesn't have any range, but he does, in fact, as special. And he's 20 points less than Q9? I don't know. I've just looking at this guy, I think this guy needs a bump in price. We haven't even talked about his powers. Look at the stats compared to what he offers. He's crazy. He's crazy. Okay, but let's look into his powers. So this is how he gets ranged. So yeah, you look at this figure and you're like, no, this dude has range. You tell me this guy has 1 range? Preposterous. Indeed, he has range. Full barrage special attack. What a cool name. It's attack special, range special. So it's basically you get to choose between some attack and range combinations. When using full barrage, Q11 may attack up to 3 times. Each attack must target a different figure and must use a different range and attack value pair from the list below. So you get 1 attack that's range 7, attack 2, 1 attack range 5, attack 3, 1 attack range 3, attack 4. So it's kind of like you get a wrist rocket, you get a... It's like Queglix for Q. It's like Queglix for Q9, except you don't get to distribute. You don't start out with a set of dice and then you decide like, oh, I'm going to do 6 attacks of 1 or what is it, 9 attacks of 1 or 3 attacks of 3. Q9's so freaking good. He's so good. You have these attack combinations. You can only use them. You can use 1 of each, and you have to choose which. So to me, I would want to keep this. I almost want to keep this guy. If I want to use full barrage, you want to keep him away from engagements, because if he gets engaged and he fails to kill that figure, then he's using all those different attack combinations onto the same figure he's engaged with, you know? I feel like you want to, if he's unengaged from figures, then you have a lot more room to play around with who to attack with this special power, or the special attack. So that's really exciting. So he can hit far if he needs to with 7 range. He can have an average attack of 3 at 5 range, and then he fires a big ol' Q10 wrist rocket at 3 range, which, you know, Q10 can fire at 4 range, but whatever. You get at least a ranged attack of 4, which is significant. So this is really impressive here. This too is impressive. Vidar's Hammer. This is not a special attack. It's just an extra bonus attached onto the attack. When Q11 attacks an adjacent figure with a normal attack, you may choose 1 small, medium, or large? Or large? Are you freaking kidding? 1 small, medium, or large figure that is adjacent to the defending figure. If the defending figure receives any wounds from Major Q11's attack, the chosen figure receives 1 wound. So it's kind of like an explosion. You know, you do a wound, and then someone else nearby gets an extra wound distributed to them. I don't know. I think this guy, 160 points. You're telling me all of this for 160 points? That sounds like a bargain. That sounds like an insane bargain to me. Here's one reason I'm super intrigued by this guy. Since he has a range of 1, that makes him considered a melee soulborg, which allows him to join and bond with the Hoplatrons from VC. So I've got a lot of pet armies in Heroscape. There's one specific version of the Hoplitron army that is kind of a pet army of mine that I really enjoy playing. I love the Hoplotrons. They're a lot of fun, and they have something called melee Soulborn bonding. After revealing an order marker on a Hoplitron, before taking that Hoplitron's turn, you may take a turn with one other Soulborn hero you control with a range of 1. And look, it counts. So even though he has a ranged attack, he's considered a melee Soulborn. You can take a turn with him. That is super exciting for a Hoplitron's player. Hoplotrons did actually have a ranged option. They had Major J15, also a VC unit here. So he has guided cannon special attack, range 4, attack 4. So you can the J15 is great. I'd consider him an auto include if you're running Hoplotrons. It's a no-brainer. Breaching Scythe is cool, good stats. Guided Cannon is great. You can attack a figure other than the one you're engaged with. And 4 attack at 4 range is very, very solid. But he's 105 points, so he's a lot cheaper. This guy here, Major Q11, he gives a Hoplotron's player another ranged option to spec into that army. So you could have J15 and Q11, or this guy might replace J15. I might say, forget J15. I can take this guy. He's got an attack of 4 at range. Heck yeah, let's do it. Plus, he's got 6 attack, 6 defense, he's more survivable. Oh my god. I don't know. I think 160 is preposterously low for what this guy brings, but it's possible I'm overestimating him. That's entirely possible. But just very excited for how strong he's going to be, or to see him, to get my hands on him and play him with the Hoplotrons. A really exciting figure. And so yeah, you will get this figure if you order the April release of Wave 2 of Rising Tide. So yeah, that is the end of all of the units we have. All the units we have to talk about for Rising Tide of Age of Annihilation. And I did mention I wanted to talk a little bit about the Revna faction. I'll just put up Queen Maladrix. Of the 2 new Revna, let me put it like this. Revna is one of my favorite Valkyrie right now, just aesthetically. So I'm a big fan of Valkyrie because I like a lot of the VC Valkyrie roster. He might be my favorite Valkyrie, just in my heart. I'm not sure. I like Valkyrie. I like the idea of an evil Valkyrie who, Utgar is an evil Valkyrie. His goal is conquest. He wants to conquer the universe. He wants to take all the Wellsprings. His goal is conquest. Valkyrie, he's evil. His goal is destruction. He just wants to destroy. And I like that. I think that's kind of cool. But Valkyrie is in a weird place, I think, right now with the Heroscape property, because Valkyrie was released as he was introduced as a Valkyrie as part of the D&D run of Heroscape, and so that is owned by Wizards of the Coast. And so I think Valkyrie, technically as an entity, is owned by Wizards of the Coast. Someone who's more familiar with it can comment in the chat. I'm talking like I'm streaming, in the comment section on YouTube. But Valkyrie's in a weird place because of that time when Wizards of the Coast was running Heroscape. And as you can see, there have been no official Valkyrie units released after the D&D run. VC has done a great job at fleshing out the Valkyrie faction, and that's why it's probably my favorite Valkyrie faction. Revna, and many have noted this, Revna is kind of official Heroscape's Valkyrie. It's classic Heroscape canon's Valkyrie. She is a Valkyrie general. She's got kind of the dark, spooky cave aesthetic, kind of the sand-colored cards, the copper-colored cards. And she a lot of her units they have a proximity to death and the idea of death. Like her 2 Kyrie heroes, the Mizerx and Kilkarax. They both they have powers that kind of sculpts that look like they're like voodoo doctors or whatever. Anyway, the point is that Revna is capturing a lot of the Valkyrie aesthetic in an official capacity. But also, too, Revna I also consider pretty distinct from Valkyrie. Revna I don't immediately peg as evil. I don't see her necessarily as an evil Kyrie. She's broody, what little we know of her is kind of dark and mysterious and potentially evil, potentially dangerous, but we just don't know enough about her. And so there's an extra aura of mystery. Valkyrie I sort of see as someone who's almost like pitiable. He was turned into a monstrosity by Estevar's magic, which is dumb. I'm sorry, that's dumb. I love the Velcro faction, but that's a really dumb piece of lore. I don't know. I think it's silly. Revna, as far as I know, is a Valkyrie properly through drinking from a wellspring, but we don't know a lot about her. We don't know if she's good or bad. And also too, the fact that the Skordai are here, you know, the Festering Honor Guard, the whole hive here, Queen Maladrix. The fact that her backstory is as tragic as it is, it makes me think the writers are asking us to somewhat sympathize with Revna. And there's also some other units with bios, other Revna units, where it's sort of like these characters, they felt like misfits, and Revna just sort of took them in like, hey, it's okay, I'm a misfit too, join me. I find that kind of I find that kind of appealing narratively. It makes you I can identify with that, you know, or I can sort of like I can understand that. So yeah, I really like the Revna faction, and it's my favorite of the official Heroscape factions. Or the canon Heroscape factions. Valkyrie is probably my favorite in my heart, but I just wanted to drop that note since this is a very Revna heavy wave. I wanted to add that little note about Revna. I like the faction aesthetically in the lore. Good job, guys. Good job, Renegade. You're doing good. You're doing good. All right, folks. Well, I shudder to look at the runtime of this recording, but I've kept you all for much too long as always. Hopefully you got some painting done having this in the background, or you were listening to this on your commute, and hopefully some of the things I shared were insightful, even though this is all off the cuff. Lots more coming up on the channel, lots more projects, but you know my release schedule. Well, heck, I don't even know my release schedule. Sometimes I can get videos out quickly, sometimes it takes a year. I don't know, it's up in the air. Anyway, folks, really, if you've stayed this long, really appreciate you staying. Again, I hope you've enjoyed. Hope you're able to get stuff done with this in the background. And yeah, new videos will be coming out soon. And as always, take care, stay safe, and scape on.